Great to see you, my friend. Man, that was a lot of fun at the Bart Hall Show yesterday, wasn't it?
Phil, what a blast! You know, it was a good renewal coming back after a couple of years for Bart's show. You know, it was. I'm sure we got there a little late, but it was. For us, it's a big social deal too. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Is talk about the shows. And what you gain out of it. I mean, there's some of you that are going there for the deals, and I get that. In the past, being in this industry all these years, I always looked to do things that were innovative and things, and when it came to seminars and things like, and subjects like that, I wanted to have something that nobody else had. So I would always really scrutinize, what I was looking for in the show, whether it's specific products. Now, I have to tell you, I was very blessed in that I used to go around with a friend of mine named Bob Sarber. He was the editor of Peterson's Fishing Magazine.
Yeah, I knew Bob.
Yeah, and Sarb and I would fly to different shows, and they'd use me for technical analysis. And I'd go to, some of my first, before his ICAST, it was the AFMA show. Well, we'd fly in, and I would just walk the show by myself, collect data, look at all the new products. And back in those days, it would take several days to go through the entire show. And leave a business card with them, for consulting and whatnot. But I would go through and look. Now, you go through a show that takes you that long. These are huge, huge shows, like at the Vegas Convention Center. You couldn't see it in a day, not even two for them, for the most part. But I would scrutinize every bit of little tackle and really look for the innovative products in our field. And I found very few of them. With all the thousands of things we previewed, there's only a few things that were very innovative. And I'm still like that today. A lot of them are still the reinvention of the wheel. Doesn't excite me. I mean, there's times when it can tweak it enough, it makes a big difference. But I'm looking for things that are innovative, And over the years, I could think of, probably the biggest is we met with Wendy yesterday at the Isoline booth. The biggest innovator of all time for me was working with Russ Iser when he unleashed Spectra, and it was way above most people's heads. Even I wasn't 100% on it the whole time. I saw specialty uses for fly line backing, for backing, on our saltwater reels. I never thought that I'd ever use Spectra on my trout reels. My trout gear all has very fine Spectra, and then I splice it directly into a longer length of fluorocarbon, and it's a killer. So, in every respect, it's been a winner for us, But I mean, in assessing all these shows and being able to have that blessing of walking around to all these different manufacturers nationally and internationally at times too, you get that eye for that one thing or the couple things that are innovative. And it takes a lot of research in doing that. And so that's what makes it fun. So when you go and do the show, I know that a lot of you guys you're very interested in getting into sales, and that's on your agenda. I get it, but when you get a chance to talk, like Phil and I got a chance to talk to Frank Murata at Daiwa, and they start telling you some of the technical things, and you can pull this up on Phil's podcast too, and interviewing Frank, and Frank's talking to us. And
by the way, Danny, Frank was ready to kill me yesterday, and you know why, right?
Yeah, to redo it.
Yeah, the audio didn't work, and I went over and said, "Hey, Frank, you're going to kill me." There was no audio on that, but he was a trooper, man. He cranked out another good one.
Yeah. Well, it's easy when you know your stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, that's the whole thing about the show. So, it's a good time for you serious guys. It's not just it is finding your deals, but when you really go and dissect what's technically innovative, it starts narrowing that amount of product down. So, depends how you look at it. But I mean, in my head, like I said, after doing that for magazines and for writers and stuff for that all those years, you have that. So I look to see what's really innovative with products, not just the reinvention of the wheel or putting a different coat of paint on it. It's looking for real, true innovations.
Yeah. And we're going to have more on that in a minute, but you're already getting a ton of questions, Danny, so I'll start cranking them up to you right now.
But we're looking forward to this.
Also, I was going to mention the Bart Hall Show runs until Sunday, right? And you and I will be back. Yeah. Are you going to be there Friday?
Yeah, I'll
Saturday,
make it a
Sunday?
point. Yeah,
Yeah, good.
Yeah, whenever.
And so many people, I watch people coming up to you and saying, "Man, I love the show, and you're doing great." And
It's so
you
fun.
walk in there, and that's part of the other thing. Here I go. I'm supposed to be reading questions, but
No, this is perfect.
that
yeah.
community, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
You,
That's why we're there. We love all the people.
Yeah,
we grew up
right.
with them, and we're there. You know what? And never be afraid to ask me a question or anybody. You know, if I don't know it, I'll tell you I don't know it. I'm not going to BS you. I'm sorry. You know, I will tell you I don't know it. You know, but I'm more than willing to help because I was at that point when, as a little kid, I would ask questions, and you know, there's some of that stick in your mind that don't answer questions, or they'll say stuff, and that also sticks in your mind too. And I think we told the story about how when I was very young, I walked in with my grandpa and grandma to the pen booth, and think about this now, looking back in all these years, where have the innovations come out in reels? It came out of Southern California. You know why? Because of this very example as a little kid, and I was not given the respect as a little kid, but I asked the guy, my first show was at the Great Western Center, one of the early Fred Halls, and Penn had a booth out, and they had a guy out from Pennsylvania, you know, from Philadelphia, and I asked the guy, I says, "Is there anything you do about?" Basically, we're fishing jig masters, so you got a lot of you guys may not remember, but it came with a metal spool that was extremely heavy, and you couldn't cast it. You couldn't. There's no way you could fly line anything unless you put a brick on the end, and you know then it would fly line, then it would spin the spool, and then you had a plastic spool which was you had the ability to cast an anchovy. You had to back it with string or something to cushion it because what happens was once you hook the fish, the mono would tighten up and it would spread the spool. It would just go pop and you're done. Well, lo and behold, you know, his answer to me was, "We sell every reel we make. We're not changing anything for you guys in Southern California." So you know, later on they gravitated to Carl Newell doing aluminum spool, and from that, we had engineers out here in aerospace that had access to CNC machines, and you had aluminum side plates. And the innovation started from here, folks. So be very proud of yourself. I mean, we come from a society of Hollywood, aerospace, you name it, you know, the music industry, JPL. I mean, you know, our fishermen have a different technical mentality than anywhere else in the country. And trust me, I've seen it doing all these shows. You know, we have the best crowd with that. And I've always listened to input from you guys because there's a lot that you know that we don't know in your specific fields. So it's that person that could take that and implement it in our fishing industry that's gonna win over. So don't ever be afraid to ask questions. So keep firing away. If I don't know it, I'm not gonna BS you on it, but you know, we'll get somebody or we'll find somebody that can help you.
That's so true. Hey, before I get to the questions, I want to remind you that next Thursday, Danny will be coming to you live from the Redondo Rod and Gun Club in, of course, Redondo Beach, California. Danny's going to go on at 6. I'll be on with Danny. And then we are going to just segue in to a presentation by Captain Bill Wilkerson from the Horizon. He's giving a presentation at the Rod and Gun Club. The public is invited. They have great food there. Danny loves it. I love it. It's a fun place to be. So you're going to have the Danny Kadota Show live, and then we'll segue right into, we're not even going to take a break. We'll segue into Bill's great presentation, talking about his new boat, the Horizon. If you can come, that would be great. And if you can't, we'll live stream it for you. Dan Smith, Dan and his lovely wife, Kim, stayed with us after that last event we had here at 22nd Street Landing.
Absolutely.
For what? 3 hours, something like that.
What an awesome day, Phil.
Yeah.
What an awesome day.
Such lovely people.
Appreciation of you know, your crowd, you know, and your
Our
supporters.
crowd.
Yeah, I mean, no, we love it. We love it. And that's what it takes, you know.
It does.
Awesome.
All right. Albert Ponce. Hello, Danny, Phil, and the fine Friedman Adventure family. Albert, it's always good to see you. Acme, does Danny ever fish crawdads for largemouth bass anymore? He was the master. Man, I hear that question all the time. People like, Danny used to have 100 dozen crawdads at his house, and he'd change the water, and he'd baby these things. And
well, you know, and let me tell you the analogy, where we get that from. You know, we ran sport fishing boats, right? So if I could get you cured bait as opposed to bait that's just caught out of the net and hasn't had a chance to settle down and have the weaker stuff die off, cured bait makes a huge difference. And so there was a time that we would take our crowders, go in some of these streams, and two guys would one side on the other, and then one guy with the net, and we throw the crowd up on the shore on the side of the stream, and we throw the big ones back so they could respawn, throw the little ones back so they can grow, and we just take the choice crawdad size, which was about 2.5, 3 inches, and put them in bins, and I would keep 100 dozen all the time, 10 bins of 12 dozen each.
Wow.
And
That probably turned into a whole.
it was a lot of work because you had to change the water every night because it would smell. But in essence, it was like curing anchovies or sardines or anything. You had the weak stuff would die off, and when that stuff hit the water, it would take off. Now, if there was no bass around, you could feel it go thump, 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 thump all the way down to the bottom. If there was a bass there, it was a panic thump. And you guys got to recognize that. It's like when a sardine changes gears, right? You're on point and get ready to kick it in gear. Well, it was the same way. And so having cured bait in all forms, whether it was there was a time we used to cure mudsuckers. That was hard to get and inexpensive, as was water dogs. And then water dogs, we had to keep them refrigerated too. But the main choice, and going through all that, to be honest with you, I never got a real big fish on any of like the water dogs or mudsuckers. All my real big fish, the upper teens, were all caught on crawdads. And I got to believe that it's Mother Nature. We're fishing them in the pre-spawn where at the very heaviest weight in the pre-spawn where they're laden with the eggs and everything, is that they need that calcium and cholesterol out of the crawdad to get to that weight, and they need it for the egg development, And so I believe that's why, the very biggest fish that we caught here in California at that particular time in the pre-spawn was because of that. Mother Nature dictated, number one. And number two, it was, the presentation. We fished lighter lines, and yes, there were some fish caught, some big fish caught that were never replicated. And being a saltwater skipper, I was very, very, I would critique and I'd watch these guys with binoculars, and you could see the guys that were legit and some that weren't. I think we mentioned in the past I would leave for the lake at 1 o'clock or so, get up there so we'd have breakfast and be the first ones in line, so we'd have a choice of position alpha. And what they also didn't recognize is that I had my binoculars, so I could see everybody on the lake and keep abreast of what they're doing. I could see exactly what they're throwing for bait, And you have to remember, as a saltwater skipper, isn't it odd that some of these guys that caught one fish and one fish only would hang back at the marina, and they would have a 4-pound rod and a 20-pound rod. Now, how could that happen? So, when you start putting 2 and 2 together and these guys not being able to replicate it, and that's why I made it a point to fish and do TV shows with writers and everybody else, so you could show that the method is a solid concept, and approach that we took for catching these big fish. And it had to do with at that time of year, those big largemouth needed the calcium and cholesterol from the crawdads for the egg development for their young. And so Mother Nature dictated that. And that's always the case, that Mother Nature rules. And when you start setting these things in their own environment and what their needs are, that will also help your fishing,
So to just go a little bit further on that question, do you miss doing that? It
was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, a lot
Right.
of time. I mean, we'd spend a whole day, fortunately you'd have to go all the time, maybe once every couple of weeks to go find the crawdads. We had some spots locked up that were pretty good. They were pretty consistent. And after a while, some of them got hammered, when other people found out about them. But, it was a lot of work, and when we couldn't do that, we'd buy them from the shops, The expensive things were like the water dogs, even back in those days. And then we found out they weren't as effective. I did have some, there were some lakes, a couple lakes, that we did implement some of these big water dogs, and it was worth it. We'll talk about that later, but it was like at Vail Lake, and a couple places like that where, it was just great fishing. They also would eat the crawdads, but the biggest fish I hooked at Vail, same deal, they were on crawdads. And the ones that I know of, the 18s that were legit, they were hooked on crawdads also. So yeah, we could talk about that, but it does have to do with all the time on the water, and you're playing the odds. At that time, those big bass needed the calcium cholesterol from the crawdads for the egg development, and that's what drove those big fish at that particular point.
Acme says, awesome stuff. Thank you. Danny is such a cool dude. I second that, man. That's why he's here. Joe Surwald, I think in the last 25 to 30 years, fishing has come a long way. I think we all have a collection of old reels that have been handed down by generations. I call the wall hangers the area part of our West. So I guess he, has those, like a little mini museum of all the stuff that you have left over, right?
I gave away a lot of stuff, and I put a lot in. And Phil, you and I have to make a run up to Joey's place.
We do.
Up at Tatty, because he has a mini museum, and I put a lot of my stuff up there. I have, I don't know if you guys realize, but there was a 2-speed reel called the Real Deal, and I still have it in the original box, but it was attached to a Penn reel, and it gave it a transmission. So it was one of the early 2-speeds, So I put that in Joey's museum, I put Tatty along with some of the collectible jigs and things, and but the innovation has always come out of Southern Cal, and I think I've told you why. We're loaded with aerospace, Hollywood, Disneyland people, JPLs, you name it. But our fishing clientele, we're on a different level, folks. And I'm not just telling you this just to tell you this. And being blessed by being able to fish around the country and do shows around the country, I've seen the mentality difference. And, it's our Southern California way of fishing is far and above everyone. I'm not being arrogant about it. I've seen, there's some countries, like some of the Japanese are pretty astute when it comes to their technical tackle and stuff like that. And I picked up stuff by going over there and looking at tackle and playing with their tackle too. And and it's that open mind that you have to have that keeps, you want that yearning. That you got to keep learning. You can't stop learning. If you stop learning, it tells me you're done, because there's no one that knows it all and will ever know it all. So, and it changes.
That is for sure. Charles Zimmer is the president of the Redondo Rod and Gun Club. He's got a question. Before that, however, Charles, put your phone number up there, because if you'd like to come to next Thursday's meeting and see Danny live, you'll be able to participate there and then see Bill Wilkerson back him up and have some great food and meet Danny and meet us all. It would be great. And Chuck's going to put his phone number up there, because he wants like 100 phone calls. Is he going to do it, Danny? I think he is, yeah. And also, we have a day at the lake, which I don't know if I've mentioned it to you, but you're going to be there. I know you are. I'm committing you already.
Lake? Which lake?
Santa Ana River Lakes, trout fishing, April the 15th, which is tax day. And it's all about getting kids out fishing.
Okay, I'm putting it down.
Di was going to give us 10 rods and reels. We've got a bunch of other sponsors, which Chuck can put up there, and I'll read them since my brain is shot. But it's going to be for $10. You get lunch. You got to get into it's tailor made for you, because you love teaching kids to fish.
I love that.
Yeah,
and kids to me is special. But I used to take my grandma when she was up there in age. I mean, it was a payback deal, because they had me fishing and walking Sierra streams when I was 4 up at Bishop Creek, and then they had me on a half-day boat getting my first yellowtail when I was 5 out local here, and so myself and my crew, and I had the Tanaka brothers, my brother, Junior, and Brian Gerhard, and guys like that. We'd go to Santa Ana River Lakes on our days off, and I would take my grandma. And those kids would all hook, and my grandma was little roly-poly, about 4 foot nothing,
Yeah.
And she'd be in the chair, and I can remember one time, and I mean, I wish I had this on film, Phil.
How old is she now?
Well, no, she passed.
I mean,
away.
how old was she when this happened?
Well, she was in her 80s.
Oh, wow.
Mid to upper 80s.
Okay.
But she went to 97. She was healthy till she was 97.
Wow.
She was blessed.
Yes.
And she was blessed because she was she never had a mean thing in her life to ever say to anybody. She was just one of those people.
Lovely person.
And, incidentally, she used to do the seamstress for Doris Day.
What
Most
the
of us
heck?
don't even know who. More of the young kids don't
Yeah,
know who
right.
Doris Day is, but yeah, she got
Google that, kids.
She worked for Georgia Bullock's up in West LA, and she did all the seamstress stuff for her. But so anyway, she was just a happy lady, and I fished with them from the time I was 4, and she was hardcore trout, and I got pictures of Bishop Creek in the. I got one here at South Lake in 1938, but they were going up there in the late 20s.
Yeah, wow.
And they had the caravan
Amazing.
because, the group of people would have mechanics and stuff. You had to be able to fix your own car, flat tires, this, that, because there was no AAA back in those days, folks. So they would caravan up, for safety's sake, too. But, I had the blessing of fishing with her. She was hardcore.
So you were going to say you wish you had a video of what? Of what?
Of fishing at Santa Ana River Lakes with my grandma.
Yeah.
We're all sitting in lawn chairs, and you know how the incline is at the lake.
I was looking at it the other day. You can really take a header there, it looks like.
We're sitting on an incline. We have her chair dug in, and I don't know which kid hooked it, but we go, hey, grandma, and she'd run down there and grab the rod. Well, she stumbles, and she was kind of roly-poly. She rolls down the hill.
Oh, she fell.
But she was rolling, right?
Yeah.
Literally rolling. Never broke stride. Got up like she was, how you used to get up when you're down on the field playing football and you pop back up.
Yeah, right.
Well, she never broke stride, man.
She's 90 years old, though.
And she rolls and then grabs the rod that's bending and starts fighting the fish. And I think my crew, if, we get them on one of these days and they can talk about it, we died laughing.
That's hilarious, man.
She
That
was
is so awesome.
Hardcore.
That
It
is
was
awesome.
unbelievable.
Anyway, Charles actually had a question. He said, Brian Wynn made me buy, I guess he held a gun to his head, made me buy a slow pitch setup. Do you have any good advice on how to fish slow pitch, Danny?
No, I don't. Charlie, I don't fish the slow pitch, but I've seen it. And it's the action, that it drops in shirt. I'm sure with the softer tip, it has an effect. And not knowing it, I'm not the right guy for that. But, I looked at it. The one thing that I will tell you is I look at the analogy on fishing a slow pitch, and when you're bit, they're basically pointing the rod. Well, it's something that I've been advocating for a long time, even with a rail rod. If you hold that angle down, you're going to get the maximum pressure of it. You get so much more pressure, and I think I've done the analogies before, but it's virtually 10 times more pressure holding the rod down. And when I see a guy with a rail rod up in this angle here, why would you have 1/10 the power out of it here instead of having it pointed down? And that's how they're fishing the slow pitches, right, when you're fighting the fish. And so by looking at that analogy alone, kind of tells you where your power curve is. So as far as fishing that slow pitch, once you hook that fish, it has to do with the way it allows it to get bit, which I think is the big attribute in slow pitch. If not, we're used to just dropping it out to, and bouncing it around till you get bit, and then you put it in gear and then hammer them. But essentially you are pointing that fish. So whether you're fishing with a rail rod or a slow pitch rod, it's the angle. And so that's where your efficiency comes, because you're getting 100% lift. Most of the power is coming straight off the reel, because if you're pointing it, it's that and the spectra that's taking the heat on the pressure. So,
hey, if anybody's at the Bart Hall Show and watching this right now, put a comment up. We'd love to hear from you, man.
Yeah.
You can go by and see one of our friends and say hi or
Absolutely.
something. But
Absolutely.
if you're there at the Bart Hall Show and you're watching us right now, that'd be great to hear from you. Charles Zimmer says April 13th, which is a week from tonight, at the Redondo Beach Rod and Gun Club in Redondo Beach, Danny will be starting his podcast at his usual time, 6 p.m. I'll be there, and then we'll segue right in to Bill Wilkerson and the Horizon. That is going to be an awesome night, Danny. I can't wait to do that because you have a live audience, number one, and then you go to Bill Wilkerson right after you're done.
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but last night I walked over to the H&M booth, which we're involved with. My dad as a partner, and Bill was in there, and we sat there and talked. I can't even remember how long we talked. Found out that we grew up not that far away.
Wow.
In the short area, he went to LA High, or he was in the LA High area, but in that area, I went to school with, you had the Kagawa brothers, Dave and Norm.
Yeah.
My brother and myself. You had Bobby Yoshihiro and his his daughter,
Yeah. Robin.
Robin.
Yeah.
So you had,
And she's got a license.
yeah, you got an influx of a lot of skippers, and then Bill, you know, coming out. There's a lot of kids that went on boats. I mean, but it was L.A. I mean, you guys are just over here, Redondo Beach.
Right.
You had all those guys too.
But
I
was
mean,
there something, some common denominator where you guys all, was it Japanese culture?
I think that had to do. I think that had a lot to do.
You guys were into,
involved in fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big thing, and you had your crowds, and we all had our shops that we dealt with, and but when it all came down to it, the bottom line was the collaboration from all of us together made this fishery what it is today.
Absolutely,
It's
100%.
It's that mentality, and having that mentality where we take and fine tune from every segment, whether you had guys coming out of aerospace or anything technical, for sure, or even methodology, the methodology part of it, and bringing short stroking. These things all came from here, folks. They didn't come from anywhere else. Fishing in open party boats, boy, that made you tough real quick. When you fished with these old salts that wouldn't move.
Yeah.
I get bit and they go, excuse me, and they go, no, this is my spot, and I go, excuse me, I have a fish on, I got to get by, and we. Maybe that's why implemented some of my football there, because I would just excuse me, and they would sit there locked down like this at the rail, and I would just have to lower my shoulder and say, sorry.
I love it.
Yeah.
Chuck Zimmer is being way too polite to me. He's already said your show is April 13th. So I keep saying it's next Thursday. It's 2 weeks. So finally, after putting April 13th up there and me not getting it, he says it's
I was just writing it down here.
Yeah, change it. It's not next week. It's absolutely. It's April 13th is when Bill is giving his and Danny. So Danny will be live here next week from 22nd Street Landing. I'm all screwed up. And then the week after that, he'll be doing his thing. Hey, Chuck, throw your phone number up there so people can get raffle tickets. They can buy the lunch, and they can find out more about how they can attend a Redondo Rod and Gun Club meeting, because it is so much fun. No question about it. Isaac says, good evening, Danny and Phil, and we say, good evening, Isaac. Blue Sky says, Danny, could you do me a favor and talk about that angle that you were talking about? I need a refresher, please.
Okay, here you go. Unfortunately, the analogy is very close to the trip that we had on the Freedom back in October. And I was using a 30-pound rod. So this was done on something that was very, very similar, okay? So it was 7 foot 30, excuse me, this one's an 8 foot 30, but, we did the study with a 7 foot 30 up at G. Loomis. And it was on a slide. And we had rocket launchers that would put it at different angles. One at 60 degrees, one at 45, one at 90, one at 120, and all the way up to 180, which is straight up, which would be giving you a high stick, okay? And down at the lowest, down at 60 degrees here, this 30-pound stick, which is all graphite, was very similar to mine, the Semperfish, 8-footer that I have, that I used on that Freedom trip, okay? It took 68 pounds of pressure to break that. But that's a lot of pressure, but it's not bending a whole lot because this is how you're fishing it. Think about it now. You're fishing a slow pitch. How do you think these guys are fishing it? They're pretty much pointing it. The tips are so whippy, you're not going to get any lift out of them. So, if you're pointing it at that angle, you're going to get your maximum power, okay? And really the power is going to come off your reel, whether it's a little 2-speed or whatever, and having the spectral line, there's no stretch. And it's a matter of getting that little crank the whole time, keeping that head coming to you till it never gets its head down. So, as long as you're on it, that thing will plane all the way. It'll kick its way all the way up, And that's what I tried to implement with these bigger fish and lighter line, and you will max it and tax it out. When you get to 45 degrees, that goes from 68 pounds of pressure to 45. There's a substantial drop there at 45, at this angle.
Right.
Right? When you get up to 90, it drops off to 30s, When you go up to 120, it's like 9 pounds. And then when you get up to a straight high stick, okay, you're at 6.2. So you got 1/10 or less
Brutal.
the pressure than you have it. You know, so you see guys doing this. Not smart, folks. It's not smart. Why would you have it up here when you got 1/10 the pressure pointed down here? The other thing is when you have it up here and you got 1/10 the pressure, you got no control of keeping that head coming up. So if you have the pressure down here and you're just getting the half crank at a time, every time that fish kicks, if his head's pointing up, he's kicking at you, and all you got to do is just keep up with it. So whether you're using at that point, if you have it in low or you have it on high speed, doesn't matter. It's just a matter of keeping that head coming up, and every time he kicks, if you're staying up on that wind, he's going to be kicking his way right to the boat. You know, when you're up, why would you have 1/10 of pressure where it's very easy for them to get their head back down on you? You know, so, and the liability of breaking the rod. You know, why would you do that? You know, we're here to teach you, you know, the most efficient way to fish, and that's what I'm telling you.
That's
what
great
it's gonna
stuff.
save your tackle.
Great
too,
advice.
You know, regardless if you're fishing fiberglass or graphite. You know, fiberglass you're going to get even less because it's just going to flex, and so you know every time that fish, if he gets a little bit of his head down, if his head's pointed down, folks, and it kicks its tail, he's taking drag on you. You know, I'd rather you kick at me and just keep up with it and have him kick himself right to the boat. You know, so it's a matter of timing and it's a matter of practice, you know. But it'll produce in the long run, I guarantee you.
Blue Sky says, great. Thank you so much. Great. He loved it. Hey, Charles, put your phone number up there. Chuck Zimmer. You told me you didn't care if your phone number was up there. He's driving to Bakersfield, so when he ends up in a 5-car pileup putting his phone number in there, he's going to kill me. Yeah, I'm waiting for that to happen. All right, let's get these dates straight one more time. April 13th, Danny will be at the Redondo Rod and Reel Club, 6 p.m., followed up by Bill Wilkerson. I had that all screwed up. And then 2 days after that, we'll be at Santa Ana River Lakes. Danny, myself, all the guys from the Rod and Gun Club will be tutoring you on how to catch trout. Danny's been there many times before, so he knows all about that, knows way more about trout fishing than I know. And he's just one of the nicest guys in the world, so it'll be a great day. And the lunches, well, heck, Chuck Zimmer cooked that pulled pork thing.
Oh my God! Yeah.
They don't pull
just for the food.
Yeah, right.
Look at this. Come on. I didn't get this, you know, but yeah.
It should be great.
Watching it.
It should be great. Yeah. Hey, you know a guy named Dave Sugamura?
I sure do.
Well, Dave says
his brother and I went to school together.
He says you forgot Casey. He went to Dorsey too.
That's right.
Is that Casey from Redondo?
Casey from Redondo.
Really?
At the receivers and stuff, right?
Lobster fisherman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean.
Great guy.
I can remember when they worked at the receivers, you know, we used to get the bait on our skiffs, you know.
Yeah.
We used to rent the rowboats. We didn't have the money for that. We'd
row with the sled?
With the sled.
Yeah.
$3, you know.
God, that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. And at times when we had live squid, I thought it was highway robbery, but it was like a quarter a piece, dude. But it was a guaranteed yellowtail at the bubble hole.
Oh my God, that bubble hole was loaded with forkies, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You could could be up in the bow and you'd roll up on it. You look down, you see all those fork tails.
Awesome.
That was so cool.
Fun time.
Yeah, it sure was. All right, Isaac says on the marked line. So he saw your video today, Danny.
Okay.
Do you need to worry about being started or ending in the middle of a color and have off, and then so you're not at the proper depth? So
no, you know, I only mark, to be honest with you. You know, I did this when I was bass fishing. I never even thought about using it on the ocean, you know. But I'm sure it works. You know, with clear line. But what did it was I was in close contact all those years with Doug Hannon. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was called the bass professor. And Doug passed away a few years back.
Right.
You know? But Hannon and I would go round and round on a few things. And this is one thing I really picked up that made a big difference, and I proved it to myself I was using Trilene XT Clear because they had very little stretch to it,
right?
You know, and the 10-pound would break at 17, so it was very strong, you know. And so what I would do is I take the hook, tie it on, bring it back to my reel. So essentially, I had about 10 feet of line that I'd mark. So I'd pinch the line together, start from the hook, and do about 2.5, 3 inches of green, leave that same amount clear. Green, clear, all the way up to the tip. So essentially have maybe 10 feet of line marked, okay? Well, before I did that, I had the clear line out, and I put it in the water, and I'll be darned, you could see the light transferring down that line. When I had the green down, it disappeared. It broke that light from transferring down. And so in my head, if I couldn't see it, it made me believe the fish couldn't. And it worked for me.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
worked for me. It's one of those things that I always did all those years I was bass fishing. I didn't implement it on my saltwater. I imagine you could, but I know for a fact, it worked. In my head, if I can't see it,
The fish
it
can.
gave me the confidence to do that. And Doug had a number of things that I liked, and it was nice conversing with him. And being the bass professor, I invited him to come out and fish, But he thought the California bass was an anomaly, which it was. It was a cross between the northern and the Florida. But being the bass professor, I thought he would be compelled to understand them a little more. It was a little different fish being a hybrid,
Right.
But he also had a timetable on which he thought fish bit at a certain time. I didn't buy into that, folks. I'm more into what Mother Nature dictates, and this came about from a lot of studying. We would catch small little. Well, let me start from the start. I would put some of these big bass in Alondra Park was one of the places, in Cerritos Regional. So we'd have some 10-pounders in there for the kids to play with, right? But they'd spawn, and in the summertime you'd get little bass about like this, and we hooked a bunch, and we put them at Taka's house. He had a big aquarium. We put it in, and we'd study these things. One would be dominant.
That's
would be
so
sitting
cool.
like this, and the others would all have their heads down, and they'd be like 4 or 5 of them with their heads down, And there's a time of day when, these we started feeding them goldfish, and it got so expensive. We ended up after a while just putting it back in the lake, But we did a lot of studying on them, and you'd have that one dominant one. Until that one dominant one was done eating these goldfish, the others didn't feed. It was really weird. Maybe that explains why on my first cast on all those big fish, they were all my first cast, And I was just lucky.
That kind of does explain it, right?
I did, hey, listen, who has alpha position at your table? Usually, the head of the table, So it kind of worked that way. But I mean, I learned a lot from that because there's time of day, we're going through tide tables. Everybody had their own charts on when the fish bite, And as it turns out, guys, my assessment, Doug had his, I don't know what it's called, astro tables, but a lot of guys had these different tables on when they felt the fish bit. I went by what Mother Nature went by, and it seemed to be not always true, but was more consistent than anything. It was Mother Nature. Had to do with the tide table, because we couldn't figure out why. And a lot of this came about from, we're down in San Diego, offshore, 100 miles, and a bite's going off Astoria in Washington, in Oregon, right? At the same time. Well, what's common?
I've seen that happen so many times, and that goes through my mind too. What?
Tide.
Yeah, right? It's got to be.
It's Mother Nature's gravitational pull. So when you start understanding these fish under a scientific deal, rather than somebody making up, hey, this is the tide table, this is the fish bite table. Well, there's a lot of people. I went through that and I looked at it, and and it's not always guaranteed, but it was the most consistent for determining the bite times.
Wow, that is amazing.
So I would set the spots. And it's funny because being a saltwater skipper, we analyze how guys and where they fish. So a guy catches a big catch of fish. Where's he sitting? He's sitting on the spot where he caught it the day before, regardless if he got it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or not. So there's a lot of psychology that we go through, and we played, penny, nickel dime psychology on the boats too. Figuring
Oh
out
God, yes, trying to figure
tendencies.
it out.
But generally, if a guy had a good catch of yellows, a sea bass, or whatever, he'd be on that first thing in the next morning.
Oh, heck
regardless of
yeah.
what time, regardless if he caught it at 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah, you'd sit there and wait for a
sit there and
bite
wait.
time, right?
So it's easy to at that point it's easy to figure out where the guy got the fish.
All right, hit that like button, please. We want you to hit that like button so Danny doesn't break into tears, and I don't want to break into tears either. We appreciate y'all being here with us. Chuck Zimmer. Hey, I've asked him for his phone number now to put it up there. So the over-under now on
On Chuck,
me asking
responding.
Chuck
Come on,
is
Chuck.
3, okay? So this is number one. I'm going to bet the under. I'm going to say he puts his phone number up there before I ask 3 times. But that's the over-under. Chuck, put your phone number up. That's one, and we'll see how far it goes. Because he told me he didn't mind people calling him. So,
There you go.
Chuck, put your number up, man. What are you doing? Joe says, great advice on the angle of the rod, Danny. You are a master. And it works, right, Danny?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Even more so with these big tuna. Folks.
Joe's really thankful. He says, I need all the advice I can get.
Hey, we all
Danny,
do.
you're giving him pro advice.
And listen, I don't care how long you fish, whether you run boats or whatever. If you can't pick up something new every time you go fishing, folks, you're not looking hard enough. It's there. I mean, I had to do that when we fished with the 30 skippers on the Freedom, with Pat's trip, on the Freedom back in the fall. And let me tell you, I was processing as fast as I could because I'm with 30 talented guys, and to figure it out, it took a lot of work. It took straightening out a couple hooks. You have your trials and tribulations, but in the end, it worked. It worked out. The best consistency as far as getting bit and everything else, putting fish on.
Yeah, I mean, you're a guy who spent a lot of time on the water, a great deal of time, and your attitude has always been to be a sponge and to learn. So now that you're imparting this information and knowledge to everybody else, it's fabulous, man.
Well, you know what?
I'm sitting here learning too.
I looked at guys that wanted to keep their secrets. There were a number of them that were like that. And to me, what good does that do our industry? I want to pay it back. I was blessed by being around a lot of great fishermen and from picking things up from them and from them openly sharing, sharing technologies, material. I look at some of the great guys I fished with, the Corky Yokois, Taka, Butch Brown. I mean, to me, these were all the greatest fishermen, but having that communication with them and talking to them when you got home and giving them information on spots that we fished, that we caught fish on, that worked with the guys that worked together with us, and I didn't mind trading. There were some people that were only there to get information, and you suddenly sever that tie after a while.
Right.
You get taken advantage of.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but, with all the guys that would offer the information, we worked with, I think that helped break down some of there was a huge between the northern and southern boats. But, after a while, working with the Sanson brothers, Ray Montera, all the, Murph, all these guys down in San Diego, we got it. I think it helped close that gap and blend the fleets, the San Diego and the LA fleets, into one. And it wasn't like that often. But I think it was bass fishing was the common ground that helped do that. So that was cool.
Good stuff. Charles Zimmer, put your phone number up. That's number 2, everybody. The over-under is 3. I don't see anybody betting up there. The over-under is 3. And I've asked Charles Zimmer to put his phone number up there so we can get information on the event at Sorrel at Santa Ana Rivers Lakes, as well as attending the meeting that's coming up that Danny's going to be doing. Pay him his money. Found a bunch of cool things in my Japanese grandfather's tackle box. He had feathers, hooks without eyelets, abalone shells with holes in them. Must have been used as a lure, maybe a spinner. You seen anything like that, Danny?
I have the same thing from my grandpa.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool is
I've
that?
got pearl stuff that's actually pearl. I have stuff I won't even take out to fish. They're just too precious of memories. And again, to me, it's collectible. I think I was going to bring out one of the meetings for one of these guys, actual abalone heads that were made.
Yeah, you were going to bring them.
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Made by the Taney family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, James Taney at Long Beach.
I
was
do.
around.
He was born
his
in one of
family.
the.
I think it was his grandfathers.
Yeah.
The guys that were making those things.
Am I right? James was born in.
Probably a terminal. At the camp.
Yeah.
In camps. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember talking to him about
Yeah,
that. So, yeah.
Yeah, but their family, it goes way back. In fact, this might be from Japan that their family brought it over.
That's amazing. Dan Smith, who spent so much time with his lovely wife, came with us. He says, Phil, I think Captain Danny has been on the water so long, we need to write down what time he gets hungry, and that is when the fish will be biting. Love you guys, he says. We love you too, Dan. He's a great guy, isn't he?
You got to think, first off, fishing is fun, and you want to share this with your friends. And for me, it was sharing it with friends. But after a while, too, there was more to that. There's always, people in people's heads. There's some doubt as to the legitimacy of a lot of these fishermen. And so I made a concerted effort to bring out writers. And it was a blessing. I got to fish with Jerry Gibbs of Outdoor Life, the editor of Outdoor Life magazine. And Jerry was one of the greatest gentlemen and nicest people. He'd stay at the house, in my house with us. And he would do, he wasn't so interested in going out there and catching a 10-pounder as he was getting the story. He was a true gentleman,
Yeah.
and just one of the classiest gentlemen I've ever met. And in doing that, I got to fish with a lot of different people. When Gary Loomis come down for the show, we'd all hop in the boat and go catch bass, and we were fortunate to get 10-pound bass with them. And through that, we fished with a lot of other guys that were great fishermen, just great people. Kevin Fagan was part of the pro staff up in San Francisco.
Right.
When they had the back-to-back, they had all the Super Bowls. He was a huge bass fisherman, and we came very close to getting him one over 10. But I got one that particular day. But I've always when I fish with somebody, I'm hoping that they catch that fish. And but I'm a fisherman, so I'm going to fish it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but it was fun, and it was fun taking writers out and giving them the real understanding of what goes through my head, and how we're processing
I'll bet.
everything. Because it wasn't just throwing the crowd at him, it was bingo, it was instant. It was implementing a lot of different things.
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are things that, and those are things that are fun to learn and to, discover yourself. I could help you, but it was a lot of time on the water, and here's something you never should forget. If you can't learn something new every time you go fishing, you're not looking hard enough. Because I'm compelled, and I've learned something every time I go fishing. Good, bad, or indifferent, you're learning something.
Yes, absolutely.
And that keeps building up your repertoire,
Pay him his money. He's talking about his grandpa's tackle once again from Japan. Most of his gear was light line spinning tackle. Surprised his saltwater gear was such light line.
My grandfather, I still have his cane pole, that he used on the Redondo Pier. And it's like new. I have to bring that in one day, Phil. It's unbelievable. It's got the onyx guides, the brass handle, everything was machined, but the handle was lathed out of wood, and it had threads. Beautiful. And it looks like new.
Wow.
To me, that's the most precious thing I have.
I'll bet.
I remember him getting like 11 white sea bass with it.
Oh my God.
And I remember him fishing the linen lines. And I made the mistake. I had a lot of you don't understand this, but the linen lines used to have to be washed. So they would take it off the reels, and he had a big spool that he made with a handle that he would turn. Take all that linen line off and put on this big spool, which was about that big in diameter and about this wide.
Wow, giant.
And he would take the line off. You'd have to wash the linen and dry it, and then put it back on the reel every time you used it, And I made the mistake of, I think, throwing out that big, bulky, and I can kick myself right now because people don't understand what that was, but it was to wash the linen line back in those old days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, you're talking about you have to learn all the time. Blue Sky says, I'm 71 years old, Danny, and I'm still learning all the time.
Me too. I'm right behind you, man. Right there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right behind you guys, and I try to learn every time
exactly.
I can also. Isaac says over 3, but now Chuck Zimmer says, I see my phone number on the feed. So I guess it's back there somewhere. I don't know why Chuck wouldn't just throw it on again. Chuck, just I admit I screwed up, but put your number up there one more time. And then I can reference that and tell everybody to call you about the raffle and the other thing. But, man, not only have I screwed up the dates tonight with Chuck, but he's already put his phone number, apparently. It's back on the feed somewhere. I'm sorry, Chuck. I'm not drinking, am I, Danny?
No,
I haven't gone back to
He's
drinking,
not.
right?
He's good.
I just need some sleep, I think. Joe Surwald says, I fished for 55 years and still have a lot to learn. That's why I'm glued to my laptop right now.
Well, you're right. And the fact is, like I said, even I contend the same thing. if I can't learn something new every time I go fishing, I'm not looking hard enough because there's something there. I mean, I can't tell you. Fishing, to me, some of the biggest slaps in the faces came on that trip fishing with the Freedom because I pressured myself fishing with 30 other skippers, and right off the bat, those guys were hanging fish, and they're hanging them on 20-pound mono. And when you're seeing fish like 20-pounders, I said, okay, yeah, I can fish like I do with light line with the small gummy hook. And here, so I go.
Until you started hanging 80-pounders.
Yeah. But here's the little things that make a difference. That hook that I initially got bit on, this Gamakatsu with the ring, weighed 350 milligrams. How many guys weigh your hooks? A standard 9174 number 2 hook weighs 450 without a ring. Okay, so yeah, we can't fill that 150 milligrams, but I think that Chovy or that Dane can. So there's little things like that over the years we studied and we did, and actually it was a friend, Dave Oshima. I don't know if you remember Glenn Oshima was with Daiwa many years ago.
Yeah, kind of. Sounds familiar.
Costa Del Mar, he was with the sunglass company, but
yeah,
I think he's doing something. And he's living down in Florida now, but he came out of the fishing industry. Oh, he's another one that came out of the hood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dave and Glenn out of Dorset.
Got a whole bunch. That's a whole story in and of itself.
A lot of fishing guys.
Yeah.
And so anyway, who weighs those hooks? So I'm thinking that hook's fine with 20-pound fish because I fish albacore with it, and it does get better. It gets a bit better on 20-pound when you're fishing albies and stuff, but that's an albie. It wasn't these 60 to 100-pound units, So when you straighten them out, yeah, that's on you. It was on me. I didn't expect that, so I scaled up to a Gorilla Light, and then ended up using a.
Man, you started kicking butt then. You were on fire.
But but it's a learning thing. Phil, it wasn't right off the bat.
No. They
were all bit on the lighter stuff on the smaller fish, and all of a sudden I hang one and it goes, no, well, something's wrong with this. This picture's it's walking. I'm checking it's snug, but it's a different unit,
That's great stuff. Dave Clark, and I believe Dave was just on the Polaris Supreme and sending me information on the bite as they were going. I think Dave was on that. Dave, let us know. Maybe you're, Danny, it may not always be learning something new. Sometimes it's just reinforcing something to do. But have been getting lazy. But I've been getting lazy in your fishing, or I guess reinforcing what you know. It's all this. Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah,
I mean, like I was saying with that fish with Pat Conklin and all the skippers. You know your competition. I've been very competitive all my life. And you have to have your game up. And so you're processing so fast on the boat.
Yes.
And I don't care whether you do that on a albacore trip or whatever, but you got to it's about figuring it out, And we had the blessing of running boats and being able to look at the big picture and seeing what's going on and having the processing of the day-to-day of what develops and what's consistent. But just when you think you have it all and you have it wired, they give you the fin.
The middle fin?
Yeah, the middle fin. So you have to keep adapting. You'll figure it out, but you got to keep learning. It's about figuring it out.
Absolutely. Dave Clark was on the Polaris Supreme. He was in on that great bite, and he was sending me information from the boat while they were catching fish. So, Dave, thank you so much. That means so much to me.
And congratulations, you guys. First of the year whack, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It was a great trip, man. Good job, Dave. Really appreciate it. Dan Smith says, Danny, you ever use Dacron line? I vaguely remember it as a kid with a wire leader. I think it was called Dacron before mono. Dacron was what we fished rockcod with, right?
We fished rockcod with it. Yeah, I had it on my 9-aughts and 10-aughts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what we used.
You fish, 100 fathoms with that or whatever.
You fish a saber gaff blank,
Yeah, right.
Fish 15 to 25 hooks back then. And then we used that commercial fishing. I had that 10-aught and that was...
Get a sash weight.
Yeah, I mean, we joked about it. It was so big, I almost put a bicycle seat on the butt end, just sit on it and just, do one of those things. But yeah.
Those were the days.
Fun times.
Oh, that was so much fun. Andrew Blott says, love listening to the voice of reason. I'm 62 tomorrow. Hey, Andrew, happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday. You're a spring chicken. Come on.
And he's going to he's going to announce his retirement. So congratulations.
That's awesome.
I used to plan fishing. Now it's when you got the urge. I think I can get used to that. Hey, Andrew, happy birthday. And Danny's retiring. Man, that's great that he's
awesome.
spending tonight with us.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Dave Clark says he was on the Polaris Supreme. So let's talk about that a little bit, Danny. You know, the water temp was cool this year, and there was a couple. We've been dealing with this weather, and guys haven't been able to get out. We've had no coverage really. They do throw a spotter plane up there. That helps. But here we go, man. We got the Polaris Supreme catching fish.
That's awesome.
Independence.
They seem to always be on the fish.
Yeah.
It has good intel, good instincts. You know, you got good fishermen that will cover the column of water. You know, they go down there and they got all the right tackle. That has a lot to do with it. You know, to me, I always looked at it with, we've had this influx of squid over the last few years, and when that squid sinks out and goes down deep, we're not going to see those fish. I don't care what kind of volume.
Because they're down there chewing it up, right?
Yeah, we're not going to come out to the surface. You got to, come on. You got a steakhouse next door to you, Why would you drive and go somewhere else to get anything
where there's no food?
Right here, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Excuse me. So, yeah, it's where, who knows? It's just that I think there's a tremendous volume. I would be excited to see, and I heard there have been a few more chovies been around, and that excites me too. As much as I love the bluefin fishing, I know what albacore fishing will do for this industry. And we were blessed by it in 1984 and 85. The first 2 years we had H&M landing.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, people came out of the woodwork. And, it was a very short span coming out of El Nino in 83, and we were still catching the yellowfin and big eyes and stuff like that late in the fall. And yet in a matter of, I think it was in June when I was at Clemente, the East End of Clemente, and I'm shooting over the island, listening to the stops going on mushroom, butterfly, wide open albacore, and 84 and 85, just phenomenal years. So, I miss that. That fish is a fish that brings people out of the woodwork. I don't care what it is. Hopefully they have both. Go catch, one or two.
Which is entirely possible, right?
And go get your 5 albies, which is more than enough fish.
And they like that same water, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of. Yeah, right?
Yeah, they'll be in that.
Yeah.
The problem, the only thing you don't want to do is you be out there fishing the 20-pound with the albies, and all of a sudden
you hang 100-pound. That's a pain in the neck, no question about it. Blue Sky says, "Happy birthday, Andy!" So that is good stuff. Alan Offord is a super great guy, lovely wife, great son. What are the chances that Dorado come back to SoCal this season? Alan, thanks for being here tonight. What do you think, Danny?
That was a phenomenal bite.
It was.
And you know what? Only Mother Nature and God can tell you what's going to go on with the Dorado. We just don't know. Typically you don't see them with the cooler water fish, but I've seen crazier things. I've had that happen many years ago. I took and filmed a show with Harry Kojima. He had the Let's Go Fishing show in Hawaii. And we ended up filming a couple different shows. They flew over a couple times. And one time was a bluefin and Dorado bite. And the other time was albacore and yellowtail bite. So we cut 2 different shows completely at 2 different times that he flew over. So we had that mix. So it can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Sirwalt, this is what I like about these guys. They're all saying happy birthday and congratulations to Andrew.
Absolutely.
It's the family, right? It's the community.
That's it.
It's really beautiful stuff. Isaac has a good question. So he's talking about that Dorado bite last year, and he wants to know, was the enthusiasm around that Dorado bite the same, better, or less than a wide open albacore bite would be?
No, albacore trumps everything. It trumps everything.
I agree.
It's good. Yeah, I mean it's unique. The Dorado bite's fun. It's great. It was good for everybody. But albacore are the same type fish, and it just, what can I tell you? All those years I could experience, and I could tell you what those parking lights parking lots are like down in San Diego.
Oh,
whether
God.
you're in, Seaforth and Islandia, or whether you're in Point Loma, it's nuts. It's
Danny.
absolutely the craziest thing you'll ever see.
Can you describe to people, because you've seen it and I've seen it, the sea of lights from the sport boats headed out for Albacore? It's like nothing I've ever seen before.
You know, Phil, I could tell you this, and being down there all those years, there's so much electricity in the air.
Yes.
I would joke
Yes.
when I say you can put a light bulb in your mouth and it's going to light up.
I swear to God.
Because
I swear to God.
And then, like for myself, you know, trying to hit the dock, and I tell my groups I want you down there early because I want to get first shot at the bait, at the receivers. I don't want to be in somebody's wake. You know, I want to get out to where I want to go.
Yeah.
And I want to be ahead of them. So we would leave earlier. But when you fire up and you hear all those boats firing up down there, it just, I don't know what it does. It's that adrenaline. You just get pumped. And I don't care how many days I ran down there, and I got excited every time. You know, it was amazing. It was that anticipation.
I wonder if this is just me or you ever had this. Did you have the air horns on the boat lines at some point during? Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't need them. Didn't need them.
Oh, okay. Guys watching, right?
We yelled hookup.
Yeah.
You know, I had a very good friend, great fisherman too, and one of the greatest crew members we ever had. Kohei Kikuchi, who also helped out at Yo's many times. But Kohei, his nickname was Vavoom, you know, and he could yell hook up, and there's boats. He could stop two of the fleet that were around us. And we always joke. He's great, you know, one of the best friends and
That's funny.
that we know. But we used to laugh about that.
Charles Zimmer says, check your phone, Phil. Danny, do you want to tell Charles Zimmer what I'm doing with my phone right now?
Yeah, hey, it's filming us.
I'll check
Chuck.
it in a couple hours, Chuck. It depends on how long Danny goes, because Tony's already walked in here and said, this is such a great show. Just keep going as long as you guys want to tonight. So
yeah, fire away, guys. Hit us with anything, or you want stories? I can get just funny stories, real stories, whatever.
Yeah, hey, ask any question you want. Hit that like button again, you guys. This is fantastic. Great show tonight. I am absolutely loving it. Fish guy, Danny, what's your favorite fish recipe?
Let me tell you,
you're a heck of a cook.
My newest one. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can go, and I went that way because I wanted to bring the wives into the equation. You know, you get some hot recipes, whether it's you take in the tuna loins, cut them into sashimi strips, about like that, right? 1 inch by 3 inches or whatever, you know, and then you could slice it. Roll them in furikake, sear them just a little bit on each side. Well, the furikake gives a lot of flavor, and then you cut it like sashimi. Serve it with a ponzu sauce or wasabi sauce. But I mean, there's high-end dishes that you could do very easily. And I did this to get the wives involved because, you know, when they throw parties, now they have the pride of saying, you know, I mean, they'll get rocked by your friends saying,
oh, yeah.
Wow, that was killer. But the latest one is, in going down to Bay of L.A. with Steve Yotomi, on the boat, our Pangero, he sat there and filleted a yellowtail. And usually I like to let them sit for a while, let them calm down. And he took this thing and just filleted a small one, probably about a 12-pounder, 15-pounder, filleted it out. And there's 4 of us on the boat, right, including Fernando, right? So he cuts it like sashimi, cuts it up, and you put it on a platter. So I replicated the same thing, okay? Write this down. Very simple, but it's a killer, okay? So you have it on a tray, and use something that's cupped so that the juices and everything will stay in it. So it's a flat plate, but have a pretty good sized lip on it. Okay, so you lay the cut sashimi in there. So it's basically raw tuna. It's hachi, right?
Yeah.
Okay, squeeze lime, fresh lime. Hit it pretty good so it's soaking. Now, in the past, ceviche, they used to have it so they wouldn't eat it until it turned white.
Yeah, exactly.
Cooked through with the lime juice. No. This is raw. Squeeze it with lime. Hit it with tapatio. Okay.
Oh, God, this is sounding good.
Okay. Dice up some cilantro.
No, yum.
Throw cilantro all over it, you know. Then I'll take a little red onion, dice it small. So now I like the aesthetics too. So you get the color, the pretty color. You get the green, the orange from the tapatio, the purple from the onion, cilantro, and then you can do serrano too. You know, and
I love it.
you could do serrano with the seeds or without the seeds. You don't
Leave the seeds in there, baby.
Yeah. Well, leave the seeds in for yourself. It's
Yeah,
you
I
may
know.
kill a couple people, so you
Yeah,
might wanna do
exactly.
half of it without the seeds.
Good idea.
But the serrano gives it the flavor too, and it's so simple, but it's a killer.
It's so
It's
good.
a flat out killer.
God, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
remember I brought it in here.
You
that one night,
did.
but and it's so simple, but it'll knock out. Get some of the fresh tortilla chips that a lot of these stores make, and you'll knock it out of the park. with that.
Sometimes that simplicity, it just
Yeah.
doesn't mask the flavor of the fish.
Oh,
So you
absolutely.
get
But
you get all
here-
that.
Here's the thing, Phil. Many years ago, Bart and all these and guys that did Catherine Miller, they want me to do seminars, and they got to a point where I said, I'm tired of doing the fishing seminars. Let me do something different. So we did this, and I did this to bring in the women,
Yeah.
the wives, the spouses, and stuff, to learn how to do these things. Whether we did that one year with. We had Lure Jensen bring down a guy to show us how to smoke. This is during an albacore season.
Yeah.
Smoke fish. Then we did one with canning the tuna, and Bob Hornshoe, ironically, was one of the managers at Bob Marriott's fly shop. He did a thing on canning, which was tremendous, and I did the searing of the tuna, with the furikake. I did it on one of the grills on one of the boats down there at the landing, and then the intent was to bring, and even now, is to bring the women, your wives, your spouses, your girlfriends, into and getting involved with part of this and throwing the parties or whatever it might be, dinners with your friends, and giving them the credit. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
They'll be saying, hey, you know what? You need to go fishing. We got a party going on. You need to go catch us some more fish. Well, God, how tough is that?
Yeah,
Your wife
really.
kicking you out of the house to go fish, for a party. So, it's a win-win deal, guys.
That's perfect.
That always works.
I love it. Blue Sky says Albies are way better eating than Dorado.
Albies bring people out of the woodwork. I got to tell you, that is the fish. That is the fish. It doesn't matter where you go. It's pretty universal.
Andrew Blott, he says, thanks for the bunches of love. He's going to go watch a baseball game, I think. But, hey, congratulations.
All right.
Happy birthday, Andrew. Good to have you with us. Isaac wants to know, any thoughts on the rockfish season this year and the new depths? Are they going to find some denizens of the deep?
I'm not politically correct on stuff like this,
That's okay.
but I don't believe anything those idiots say. Did I say that?
You
I
did say
idiots?
that, yes.
Oh, yeah, I meant it too.
What idiots?
Anyway.
What idiots? Do you want to say or not?
All the biologists. You got to remember these biologists are making a living, from places like UC Santa Barbara and whatnot, with very little time on the water, and you and I looking at that where we see stuff like cowcod that we used to catch in 100 fathoms or deeper. Now they're seeing them in 30 fathoms. To me, it tells me there's maybe an overpopulation because there's been a moratorium for so long. But that's just common sense. And knowing the studies that they're doing now, I'm not mentioning any boats, but pretty privy to some of this information.
Yeah, right.
That now with decompression chambers, they can decompress a cowcod at the surface, after their tongue's blown out this far, decompress it, and get this thing to live in shallow water.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you put tracking tags on it now. So you put this thing in this one particular study, the fish was caught on the 43. So if you guys are aware, 43 is about 38 miles, I believe, out of San Diego on the course line to kind of like the east end of Clemente, right? So they catch it, put it back down on the 43. Now, I would think that in 1 week, that fish, you might track it to the east end of Catalina, maybe a stretch at the 60-mile bank, or someplace like that, the 43, But you wouldn't think that the shape of the cowcod, that it's like an albacore.
Right, it's
tuna
not
where it
gonna
can make that kind of travel,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, at a stretch, you might think, oh, maybe Cortez, maybe Tanner, that's a ways, right? In 1 week, Phil, where do you think this thing was?
I know where it was.
No,
so-
that's right. Okay, folks, it was outside Point Conception.
That's a trek,
So
isn't
you know,
it?
man, that's like saying this cow cod is, you know, you would think it'd be shaped like a tuna
It doesn't seem
to
possible.
make that kind of distance.
Yeah.
But it tells you that as humans, we don't know anything. We don't know anything of these things, you know. And it tells you even how little the biologists making these decisions know. That's what bothers me. You know, these guys are getting grant money and everything to make these decisions. Same guys that have closed down and implemented these MPLAs up in the Channel Islands. The same thing, you know. Russ Iser called me one day, and I think I mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. True story. He calls me. We've got to go to a hearing up north. And I said, well, what for? It's about the closures and these MPLAs up the Channel Islands. What's it based on? Well, it's based that they don't have, they sampled and there wasn't a sand bass in the census that they took. I said, well, what time of year was it? It was fall. Okay. So those of us that years ago used to track these things, and if we went down to San Diego early before the season, we'd fish the coast, fish the Coronados, but you get these clouds of sand bass. Clouds of sand
Amazing.
bass are coming up from down below.
Clouds
They
is a
breed
good way
down
to
there,
put it.
you know, and not knowing that these fish, these sand bass, breed and spawn. You know, they spawn and breed down in Mexico, and they would migrate up the coast, and they'd come up to San Diego. You see the half-day boats hitting them, you know, in San Diego, San Clemente, Dana Point, Newport, up to San Pedro, Redondo, up the line as they went up the line, and then all of a sudden, in the fall, they make, or before the fall, they'd start heading south again. But the biologists, not even knowing this because they don't fish and they've never tracked these things, were able to make judgments on these sand bass and shut that off, not even knowing that they're pelagic to that extent. So I've never given them the respect. I probably never will because of some of the stuff that I've seen implemented, decisions and poor decisions that they made. And I have no problem saying that. We've been on the water long enough, and I look and I see some of the things that they've implemented. Some of the things, I was on the Inland Waters Advisory Board with a lot of guys like Dave Myers, Pat Marley. There's probably about 10 of us, a couple of fishing game guys, John Bannicky and Mike Giusti. And when the quagga mussels first came in, we had told them, here's how you address it, build these, because I was bass fishing too. I said, build these little dips that we could fill them with bleach or whatever solution it is to kill these mussels, run them in the live wells as the guys leaving the lake, run it through the system, blow it through your bilge pumps or whatever, and drive off. And it'll kill it all, right? Simple to me, a little concrete thing that you can have a solution that kills these
Quick,
things.
easy, effective.
Well, they blew us off, and guess what? Before you knew it, quagga mussels were everywhere, and all the rules changed, and the fisheries changed because of that. So to me, I don't give them the respect, because I've seen some of the stuff that we tried to help them with, and it fell on deaf ears.
Don't hold back, Danny. Don't hold back at all.
Yeah, I'll try. I won't pull any.
Here's a great question. This young man, Zach Seifker. Zach, welcome to the Freedman Adventures show with Danny. It's the Danny Kadota show on Freedman Adventures. What is your best recommendation for young anglers who would like to make a name for themselves in the industry? Zach, great question, and you're asking the perfect guy.
Well, Zach, here's the deal. You're going to have to go, and I'm very adamant about this. You're going to have to. This young kid he's got to have the desire. He's got to have the determination. I would make sure this kid's perfectly clean. Is zero tolerance. I mean, I'm strict about stuff like that. He's got to have a heart for fishing. He's not doing it for money. You have the heart for fishing, and you're doing it for the love of fishing and to learn. And you got to be a sponge. You got to soak up everything that is offered to you as far as advice and everything, but be with a good operation. I think that's the biggest part, So when you get to run with the big guys and the guys that are the highliners, you get good habits. And if you get those habits, that's the way you're gonna. By the time you get your license, you'll probably implement the same standards. and that's how you get to that point.
That is such great advice. There's no doubt about it. Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. Remember the water bottle on the boat lines to let you know when they got bit? I do remember that.
Yeah, I remember that too. But you know what? I'll be darned if I had my kids not only look. You could see the stuff pop off, or you see
Yeah, oh
the
yeah.
cord
The
extend.
stretch.
But before all that, generally, you could see the blow up.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You could see the blow up. So I would watch the water.
Yeah.
I'd watch.
That's
the
so
water.
much fun.
Yeah.
Because I remember, yelling. I remember
Yeah.
on the searcher
Oh, yeah.
watching Norm yell, Frank Boyle on the jigs.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get a jig
Yep.
strike right after
Yep.
that. But
Yep.
he was watching, and keeping his
yeah.
eye on it.
Yeah.
And that's amazing stuff.
Yep.
Danny, what I was going to say is about the horns on the boat lines. We had them on we had them on the searcher when I was over there. And it got to the point, so when that horn went off, your adrenaline, but Danny, I can remember standing in the parking lot of Fisherman's Landing, trying to catch my breath in between trips. We got an hour on the beach, and you don't even trying to eat.
Yeah.
And some guy would blow that air horn in the parking lot, and I'd jump out of my skin. And then I'd say, "Oh, wait a minute." Pavlov's dogs kind of.
Oh yeah, you're trained.
Yeah, I was like
You're
trained.
tuned in.
Exactly.
No, I had Kohei. He blew the air horn away. He would stop. Like I said,
I love
true
it.
story. He stopped 2 boats around us at one time.
Is that true?
True story?
Oh, that's
True
hilarious,
story.
man.
Yeah, he's legendary.
That is hilarious.
Great
Baboom.
friend, Baboom. Yep.
Blue Skies wants to know, Danny, have you ever fished Casa Diaz in the Bay of LA?
We fished in the Bay of LA. I don't know. We fished a different spot every day, and we went to and fortunately we had 4 days of wonderful weather.
Yeah.
So we fished Cabrillo one day. Yellowtail were everywhere. I could have nailed the yellowtail with the iron head from the launch ramp. Because we made our bait right there. But we fished all these watchinagas like that the first day. Then we made a shot on the Cabrillo that not the Cabrillo, excuse me, the Baqueta that I wanted really badly. And
Great
I hooked the
eating,
fish.
huh?
Oh, they're the best.
Yeah.
And I hooked the fish, and I thought I had one. With the exception of this one didn't blow up, and ended up being a big yellow.
Oh, man. Nice.
But the bad part was, and this is tough on the Bongueros because they commercial fish the Baqueta during the off season. The bad news is that when you see American boats down there, these Bongueros won't fish a lot of those spots. They don't want to give away those spots. So I'm on this yellow, not knowing, until it starts coming up higher and higher, and it doesn't blow, and bubbles and floats up. These American boats make no bones about it. They drive right next to you. You watch them punch up a button on the GPS, lock in a position.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. So they don't want to give away their spots.
Yeah, right.
So
Exactly.
that's a tough deal, and I get that. I get that too. But that's but the fishing down there is phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I saw Mark at the show the other day. He says, hi, Phil and Danny. Hope to see you guys at Bart Hall tomorrow. We'll be there. Quick question, Danny.
Yeah.
I saw your video about Iser line. What's the difference in solid and hollow braid? What do you recommend?
The hollow's very expensive, okay? And I can tell you why. I was in Japan at one of the premium braid stations, probably in Japan, and they took me through the factory. And these machines are going 24/7. We're just round. They don't stop. 1 hour, a 16 carrier, which is 16 fibers. You have 16 spools around this thing, and they're doing this to make this beautiful, perfect hollow braid. Here's what the problem is. In 1 hour, you get 1 meter of line. That's not much, right?
Oh, man, that takes a while. That's why it's so expensive.
That's so
Obviously,
expensive.
right? Yeah.
So I was given, and before I went over there, I found out the president of the company that he was a wine drinker. So I had my son-in-law over in Long Beach. He's got the wine crush over there. I said, Adam, give me a 6-pack to take over to Japan for omiyage, which is a presentation of, you bring them something and they give you something back.
Yes.
Well, wow, I made out on that one. But I mean, we brought, 6 beautiful bottles of wine. I brought it over for him, for Mr. Fukai, the president of Torrey. He sent me home with 3 spools of hollow. and each spool the cost was about $1,200.
Oh
So
my
retail was
God.
probably $2,400 for each spool.
Are you kidding?
So that goes on my very finest reels only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just beautiful. But like I said, it takes an hour to do a meter.
Wow.
So these machines run round the clock, 24/7.
That's amazing.
But it's amazing to see the operation. I saw some stuff. Here's another one, folks. I walked by a machine, and we didn't have to sign any disclosures, but there's a machine. It looks like a drill press, and it has two cylindrical things here, and it's like a drill press. I go, what's that? He goes, that's what we use to fuse spectra together. Well, when you see a joint, I couldn't see a joint, but I guess the heat is at a certain temp, whatever. So I'm telling him when he says they pull it down and it fuses it with the heat. Well, I could never see the seam. And I said, well, how much pressure does it lose at the joints? He goes, lose? He says, it doubles in strength there. And I'm going,
wow.
I've never seen anything like that. But they're on it. I mean, these guys are sharp. It's unbelievable.
That's
so it's
amazing.
a great learning thing. And, I've been blessed, in a lot of these with fluoros and, all the new technologies that have come about in the last, I don't know how many years now, to get involved with the graphites when they first came out. With all the reels, the Trinis with Toyo Shimano, working directly with him. Before that with Newell's because of Russ Eisler.
Yeah.
We had, all of our boats, the sport boats had a number, and I think my number was 16. And so we had original prototypes on all these things. So we've been blessed. I've been very blessed to be around the right place at the right time.
And go ahead.
Yeah, with bass fishing, with all my gear. So, I really consider myself blessed to be around all that.
I was just going to say, I feel blessed to have you doing this show, as does everybody watching tonight, man. Blessed with your knowledge and what an outstanding person you are and everything else.
It's to pay it forward, Phil. There's some people that, they don't want information shared. But what good is that going to do us? It's, to me, it's about bringing the new kids into it, teaching them the right way, teaching them the clean, like I say, there's a right way and wrong way. You've seen kids come out different ways on different boats and whatever, some have had tough lives, but I mean, if you do it correctly, and that's why I say I'm very strict about like zero tolerances and stuff. The pure love of fishing and the yearning to learn was more important to me than anything, and you never stop learning. And I said that if you can't learn something new every time you go fishing, you're not looking hard enough.
I couldn't agree more. Joe Surwald says the ocean is the last frontier. That's what I love about it. No bad days on the water. 100%, right?
Absolutely.
Isaac, just out of the generosity and kindness of his heart, throws us $20 and says, go get dinner, guys. And that is very kind of you. Isaac's a veteran.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you for your service. Isaac, thank you for being there for us.
We're into vets. I mean, my uncles and
Yes.
my dad, they're my mentors.
Absolutely.
Thank all the veterans,
Thank you, Isaac. Really, really appreciate it. By the way, Danny, I should let everybody know that Diego Nuno, who is a deckhand on the Royal Star, all of the stuff that we sent to Mexico made it to his house. He's got it all warehoused. Now we have to move it from there to Cedros Island. But literally thousands of pieces of clothing, medical supplies, school supplies. And it's all due to all these wonderful people who donated, to Phil Capricio, who, I could go on and on and on and on.
That's absolutely awesome. God bless all you guys. And I mean that from my heart. That's a huge deal. And when you see the standard of living down there compared to what we have,
and no safety net, right?
Yeah, and they really do appreciate that. I mean, it's nice, and maybe that'll help bridge things, with being able to get some of our fisheries back. But I mean, it's their country, and I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just fortunate enough to get what we have and to utilize what we do down there with them. And so, we count our blessings.
We thank you all so very, very much. Gallagher Staging, he allowed us to keep all that stuff here. We got to thank Mark and Paul, Mark Paisano and Paul, and everybody here at 22nd Street, because I turned this place into a nut house. I mean, there was Mike Morrison used to take a nap on the couches there, and they're always covered with bags of clothing or medical supplies.
My God, that's funny.
And it was because of Mike and Mark
awesome.
and Paul and everybody here.
Yeah.
that we were able to collect
yeah, I
it.
mean, Gail was happy to clean stuff up, and I was looking at some stuff still had tags on it. But
I swear.
that's how we're spoiled in that
Yes.
respect too. We
Yes.
take a lot of that for granted.
Greg Bates, he's
Yeah.
another guy. He's been driving all over the place doing stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to leave anybody out.
No,
All of you folks that donated. I mean, we're still in the process of making this happen, but there's going to be thousands of people who get a new piece of clothing, crutches, a wheelchair.
Absolutely, that's
Really, really beautiful. Thank you all so very, very much for making that happen. Yellowtail 69 Wasabi says, remember the short boat line with a round, heavy lead sinker? It was kind of the short one. He said that's what the water bottle was for because you couldn't see it get big. You'd see that stretch out, wouldn't you?
We'd watch it.
Yeah.
We'd see it.
Yeah.
But if with the quick call on that one, those fish are right on the spot.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, getting that bait into them real quick. So,
Yes.
my guys were trained. I mean, they knew.
Yeah.
They knew that.
They were watching the
going.
boat
Oh,
lines.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm reading between the lines with you, and you didn't have the air horns, and you didn't have any of that because you expected your crew to be paying attention
Phil,
all the time.
and
Am
you
I
heard-
right?
And you heard me yell hookup.
Yeah.
Can you
I
imagine?
know.
Mean, it's like-
Yeah.
We'll wake up. I could wake up anybody in the bunk room.
You
at
wake
any
up the
time.
dead.
Oh, unbelievable! I've done that many times.
That's too funny. All right, Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. In Hilo, we catch both albacore, a.k.a. tombo, ahi, and yellowfin on the same trip. Fishing like shibi at night on the hand line. So he's catching YFT and albi.
Hilo.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you something. That's where my great-grandfather settled in, coming first from Japan. And my grandmother and grandfather that I fished with were both born in Hilo. And he had the commercial fleet there. And a funny story. My grandma was the hardest core fisherman I've ever met. She would never stop. I mean, I told you stories about going up to Bishop Creek, and we had to hunt her down.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't come because
That's
we were still
hilarious.
biting, right?
I love
So
it.
The same grandma. We took the Santa Ana River Lake, same grandma. I can remember once on the Mustang when Taka still had it, but we were doing a goof off, pouring rain at Catalina, and Taka's out there hooking and handing. Grandma's taking every rod. I mean, just pouring rain. We're
That's
just sitting there going,
hilarious.
oh my God, unbelievable. But that was Grandma. Now, we're blessed. My great grandfather built a koi pond in Hilo, brought fish. Imagine that back in the early 1900s. They left in the late 1892 is when they left Japan, right? But by this time he had, was established in Hilo, was working with the fishing fleet there, and had the fishing fleet there on, Coconut Island. Built the house, had a koi pond, had koi boated in, shipped in on boat from Japan. Comes home one day, and my grandmother has a rod and has all the koi laying out on the grass that she had just caught. And so Grandma was sent to Japan for school. The boys all went to SC in Berkeley. Grandma went to Japan. I think that had to do with it. Great grandpa's all his koi just, boated over from Japan.
That's awesome, man.
That's how hardcore she was. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great story. Blue Skies loves you, Danny. I can tell. He really does. He's the 71-year-old man that says that he never stops learning. He wants to know, should he tie his jig direct to the line or use a snap swivel? Danny?
You're talking about an iron jig?
I guess, yeah.
No, tie direct.
Yeah.
Tie direct. Anytime you could take something out of the equation that has a possibility of failing, I would do that. The only time I would put a swivel on it, I don't know if I'd use a snap swivel, unless you use a heavy one that clips.
Yeah, right.
I would not use a regular snap swivel. If the snap swivel can implement the jig to swim more, I would say yes, but not a normal snap swivel. You'd have to get the heavy duty ones that kind of squeeze and pinch, and then they double up, but they're real strong.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's necessary. You can try it. I mean, that's the way you do it. You throw it out there and you cast it, and you watch it as it's swimming. If it kicks the way you want it, and then change your cadence on it. I mean, you could. For me, it was not just a straight wind. When you're watching a good jig fisherman like Danny Wade or something like that, You don't watch the jig out there. You watch this. You know, it's the way the wine
Yeah.
could be this. Stop. You know, but you got to watch that.
Yeah, I do
That's
all
true
that
with
stuff
any
when I'm
fishing.
surf
So
fishing.
it's watching. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm always like, if I'm not getting bit in the surf and I know there's fish there, or even I'm changing it up. I'm
Absolutely.
fast retrieve, slow retrieve, stop, start, all that stuff.
Phil, you got it. I mean, and the end game with any facet of fishing, whether I'm fly fishing, tuna fishing, bass fishing, it's figuring it out, and that's what it's all about, folks.
Great show tonight. An hour and a half in. It feels like 10 minutes to me, Danny.
keep doing
Kadota, let me tell you. And we're still going strong. Lots of folks hit that like button. Thanks for being with us. Great show, Danny, tonight. Rick Slater, learn to love the one that caught away. It keeps you coming back. Love you, pescadores.
That's true.
That is true, right?
That's true.
Joe says he wants to know if you've ever been able to witness the great joy and happiness of the people that receive donations. It's definitely life-changing on the giving end. He's so right.
Oh.
I mean, I always have maintained. I spent a year in Costa Rica donating my time, a couple of years in Mexico.
Yeah.
I to this time, those people didn't get half of what I got out of that experience.
Yeah.
How much they taught
And
me.
think about this. Look how blessed you are. Look how blessed we all are.
Yes.
With our lifestyles, by being around all the right people, being able to do what we love doing
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah.
And paying it back to, for me and yourself too, it's paying it back to the industry that we love, and that's important.
It is.
Because it changed my life. I mean, as a little kid, my dad saw that I got with the trouble I got into, the fights and this and that. The only thing I liked more than that was that opportunity to go fish.
Yeah.
Got my grades, kept me straight on everything, and you know the end of the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I've been very blessed by that.
Yeah, realizing how blessed you are. Look, Danny, you and I mean, just on the level of this show, you and I, we sit around talk fishing no matter what. So now we're doing it with an audience. We're doing what we like, and then we go to the show, and these lovely people walk up to us and tell us how much they appreciate it.
I mean,
we're blessed.
I love it.
We're
Absolutely.
blessed.
Absolutely.
And every single person that does that, I try to treat with, and because I really feel the gratitude. Those are the people who are watching our show who make us relevant.
I gotta thank them every day.
Yeah.
If it's not for the people out there, we'd been done in 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And now look.
I know, exactly, exactly. And you ain't seen nothing yet, right, Danny?
Yeah, no, we got a lot. Yeah, got the stories.
Isaac says he's going to the Bart Hall Show Saturday. Any suggestions or tips on the best deals or things to check out? Go to the Taiwa booth, find Frank, and ask him if he's ready to kill Phil Friedman for making him do the video twice, Isaac. I made that poor guy. He killed it. He did such a great video presentation. I walked away and there was no audio. I go back and Frank wanted to kill me, but he was a trooper, man. He did a great job.
More about that than Frank. I mean,
Frank's a great, nice gentleman.
They're awesome.
Does a great, and they're
they're
giving
great
away.
people.
They've got some great deals going on there. I didn't pay attention. I was too busy talking to people. Did you see? I would just suggest hit all the booths, right?
Yeah. But again, where Daiwa started here in the U.S. Right here in Gardena.
Gardena, right?
Here in Gardena.
Yeah.
Now they're down in Orange County, but folks, that input did not go unheard all these years. They've dialed in, and changed the stuff based on what the people wanted here, and you look at it and they've got it. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and hey, we'll see you there, Isaac. Danny and I will be able to thank you for that $20 in person on Saturday. We'll both be there. Israel de la Cruz. Danny, what was the best fishing day you had as a captain on the Mustang? Great question, Israel, and it's great to see you here.
That is a tough one. That one's really a tough one. I mean, I can remember some phenomenal scores, but one of the best fishing we had, Taka was running the boat, and we had a group, and the tackle, I think the tackle, the greatest tackle at the time was maybe a Penn 6-aught, and I had one of my own personal rods and reels on the boat, which was a newelled out 6-aught, which very few people have with a a 655 heavy, and loaded with 80. And we had the big guys come to the corner, and we were bit for hours.
Oh,
hours.
God.
I mean, they eat right here on the spot, but they before you know it, you're looking on the reels. There's no line. Everything's broken up, in pieces. So I said, okay, great. I said I'm going to go back there and get one. So I have my 655 with my newelled out 6-aught, which I was so proud of. And I'm going pick out. There's only a couple mackerel in the tank, but they were eating the choves.
Yeah.
Right. But we get the mackerel, I pin it, and I start doing this, and all of a sudden it goes, mackerel comes out of my hand. That dang taka had my rod reel, makes a cast, hits the water.
Oh, no.
You blankety blank.
I love it.
I think we ended up with a handful of fish, and we were bit every cast for hours and hours, and we only ended up with a handful.
What grade? What grade of fish?
Oh, these were back then probably 80 to 100, 125.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we didn't have the tackle.
Right,
You
exactly.
think about a 6-aught then, the drag on the 6-aught pin was this. It
Yeah.
was newelled out. It was tricked out for its time. It was ahead of everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you have a drag that's this big that, we could fish our little reels now and have more drag.
Oh, I know.
But, back then, so we wiped out every piece of gear on that boat the passengers had. We get back with a handful of fish, and they go, pretty tough day, huh? I says, no, that was the best bite I've ever seen in my life. But we just, at that time, we didn't have the tackle.
Oh, man.
We've seen more productive days, but the tackle, was better. But that was one of the best bites for sure. And it was unbelievable, so.
Great question, Israel. And Israel, I saw that you donated to help fund. It's really expensive to ship all that stuff. Thank you for doing that. You are always there. And so did Jeff Yeomans from the 540 Slingers Club. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So very,
That's
very
awesome.
much. Jeff says, good evening, Phil and Danny, catching some of the podcasts while I'm on my dinner break. What a better way to spend your dinner break, Jeff.
There you go.
Looking forward to seeing it in its entirety tomorrow. Jeff, thanks, man. You're always there for us here at Freedman Adventures. Thanks for your donation. And I'm telling you guys, it's going to be great. I'm going to try to get Dan to Cedros when the stuff gets handed out and make sure we get some video of it. In fact, I'm going to get Chuck, who won't put his phone number up a second time. I'm going to get him to come down with his drone, and maybe we could do a whole thing. But I'm almost tearful thinking about how much of that, because it's so much stuff. I knew I couldn't smuggle it in. Usually I try to smuggle.
Yeah,
It was just too much, so we had to pay to do it. And it's well over $3,000 to do this, to get it across. But,
Wow.
It's going to be a great thing. So I can't thank everybody out there who's helping us so much. So Fish is at the Bart Hall Show. We found somebody. He says, what's up, Danny? What's up, Phil? Go see Fish at the Worm King booth, especially if you're at the Bart Hall Show listening to Danny and I right now. Go do it and enjoy. Steve Bermudez has been at the Bart Hall Show. I don't know if he's there now. He's been at the Dan Hernandez booth. I got to say hi to Dan the other day. He was over there talking to Frank Ursetti at H&M Landing. In fact, Dan, Frank, and I took a photo together. I'll post that up later on. It's kind of like the Three Stooges, Yeah, it's pretty bad, let me tell you. So Steve Bermudez says, just don't ask passing nuns for an interview. So he's making reference. I don't know if you saw, but I was doing the morning briefing, and I looked to my left, and way down toward the jetty, I go, I may be nuts, but I think a Catholic nun is walking toward me. And then I do another 5 minutes, and I look, and here's this nun in her full habit with the rosary hanging down, walking at sunrise to take in the beauty.
Wow.
It was really nice. So I said,
cool.
hi, sister. Good morning, sister. I've been dealing with nuns my whole life.
Yeah.
She said, good morning, God bless you. And I asked her to come over to be, but she doesn't know, what kind of podcast. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
She, pretty much, she goes, no, I can't, but, have a lovely day. God bless you. But how many times have you seen a nun walking down in her full habit? It was great.
That is
It was
amazing.
great. So, sister, if you happen to be listening, I send you all my very, very best and return the God
Phil, next
God
time,
bless to
bring
you.
your rod and reel, catch a couple fish, you'd be able to feed several thousand people.
Everybody told me you should be playing. Chuck Zimmer said, play the lotto today, man. You got to be playing the lotto. So, all right, Steve, I won't ask any more nuns for interviews that are going by. Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. Just so you know, Phil, I was born on March 23rd. That's my birthday too.
And that's right. You're 10 days after me.
I like it. That's right. Yeah, you took
yeah.
me out for
13th.
birthday
Yeah,
dinner
there
or
you go.
birthday lunch at Pacific Diner. That was a
That's
lot of
it.
fun.
That was fun.
Hey.
That's where my crew used to go on the way down here.
Yellowtail 69. I love it, man. We'll have to get together and celebrate March 23rd. I play 23 all the time. That's my lucky number. I was born March 23rd. My brother was born February 23rd. My son Patrick was born September 23rd. And my
Holy
dad
smokes.
played
I would-
college football at Ventura JC against Jackie Robinson. I still
Oh,
have the
you're
program.
kidding.
He says he
Oh,
made an
that's gotta-
open
that's
field
gotta be
tackle on Jackie,
priceless.
but I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, I have the
That's gotta be
program and
priceless. Holy smokes.
yeah, and so and his number was 23.
23,
Yeah, it's crazy. So, all right, that's cool. Isaac says, "Is it over 3 or under?" I think it's kind of like over now because I've asked another 3 times. But you know what? He's working, I think. So he's probably not hearing half of this. And besides, I haven't gotten anything straight that Chuck's told me tonight. He's told me like 1,000 times that Danny's show at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club is going to be the 13th of April. So that's 2 weeks. By the way, you are all invited to come to the Rod and Gun Club, Redondo Beach. Danny's going to be doing his show live. And then that will be followed up, and we'll live stream Bill Wilkerson from the Horizon doing a presentation. That's going to be a fun night.
That's a great place. I mean, there's so much history and fishing, and you think about this, the Southern California, some of the early fishermen that fished there. Probably some of the trailblazers for all of us.
Right.
But they had to have that mentality because it kept evolving out.
They do you remember what year they got? Was it in the 50s or
No, I think it was well before that.
before that,
I think
right?
it was before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my grandparents lived in Redondo Beach for a while.
And they were aware of that club, or
That I don't know of. But they fished there a lot. I remember Grandpa telling me he got a bluefin off the pier, and they used to catch yellowtail and white sea bass off the pier, and he would go down fish Oceanside, and he fished all over. He did his homework. I mean, that's where I got that from.
yeah.
Yeah.
You totally believe. I'm guessing that you don't believe in luck so much. You believe in preparing, working hard, right?
It's the due diligence.
Yeah.
It's that extra time you spend, changing your line every single trip. I wasn't going to take a chance. I mean, line is cheap compared to, even more so now. I mean, I've showed you some of the brochures when we fished in like the Yellowtail Derby in 1966 and things like that, where people you wouldn't believe it. Phil, we'll have to pull it up and we'll get a shot of it on the camera. But it was $12 to fish yellowtail and $15 to go albacore fishing.
Oh my God.
And it was $2 for a bunk, so I'd sleep in the galley so I could buy food. This is when I was, in like high school and college, and it was pretty amazing.
Danny, with these recent catches of bluefin tuna, is it game on now? Are we just gonna, as long as we have good weather?
It's going to be, a guy staying on the fish. I'm sure it's on, And I think it's going to have to do with, that biomass of feed, what level they're at, And if they're getting them, though, I mean, it's just finding them, and I'm sure the main group of fish isn't too far away. But, I mean, they've never had to go anywhere the last several years. There's so much feed. And I've always said that. I've contended that with the squid. Who knows how much, and their squid was floating on, Cortez and Tanner. So, I mean, there's such a big spread of areas, that we won't have to see them until they need to come up, until they change their diet over to the fin fish,
What does all that squid tell you as a man who's been on the water all these years about the health of our ecosystem, of the Eastern Pacific? What does it tell you?
Hey, man,
not only the squid, but everything else.
We're golden. I think we're good. Mother Nature's taking care of us, and it's not about us as fishermen or biologists telling you this is what they do. I had a friend when we first started bass fishing the lakes, and we'd always want information. And I said, hey, where are they at? This and this. He goes, the fish will do what they want to do. And as far as where they're at, he goes, they are where you find them. And I thought, oh, God, what a smart aleck. Right? Not necessarily smart aleck, but I would tell him in a different way.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Excuse me. But the more you fish, the more you find that true. You do, because it changes. It changes. I mean, I used to think that I had spots at Casitas that I dialed in at, And I would race there, be first in line to get to these spots and anchor on it. And things weren't always happen the way you wanted them. Sometimes they would, and you start figuring out time of days. You're figuring out the tides, this, that you have in your head that you figure are the best times. And I got to tell you, a perfect story about this is I was up on, this is 1 year in February, I think it was in '88, and I just nailed a 14 off of Trout Point at Castaic.
Yeah, that's a nice
So
one.
we're going back the next day, and I was going to take my boat, the little aluminum boat, and Freddie had my partner had a Ranger. So he wanted to take it. He just got it serviced, and I said, okay, it's faster and it's bigger. And we took my mechanic, Harold, he worked on every Detroit diesel from here as far down to San Diego. He was the number one Detroit guy. He worked at Harbor Diesel in Long Beach. So Harold was with us, and he was just he was family, So the three of us get out there, we're dialed in. I dump Freddie in, he and Harold are in the boat, they fire it up, and I see him back by the engine. I'm going, oh, what the heck is going on? The steering's frozen. Well, Freddie lives right here in Pedro, and the back of the garage is facing the ocean. Well, he gets the ocean mist and the salt or whatever, froze up the steering. So I'm going, well, heck, get the trolling motor, point it that way, we'll gun it to the spot. Happened to be a Trout Point for the guys that know Castaic. It's a prominent spot that everybody fishes, but the day before I nailed it there, so that's exactly where I want to go. I want to hammer it. I said, just point it. We'll get in there by the trolling motor. We'll anchor, and then we're good. He says, no, I got to get this thing fixed. All right. So we pull the boat out of the water, going down to Castaic, down to town, Castaic Marine. Well, it happened to be the first day of the day before the boat show, and they're towing all the boats down to L.A. from Castaic Marine. So now we got to wait for this whole line of boats to pass. I am really not happy. And I'm like, Freddie, come on, we should check this stuff out before we left, right? So it's about 2 hours later, we're on the lake, and I'm not happy. I'm grumbling.
Are you livid or?
Ooh, kind of.
Yeah.
But, I'm biting my tongue because they're, of course, they're my friends, fishing partners. But I said, I keep thinking to myself, we should just take it in my boat.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get out there. Here's this bass boat. He's on the trolling motor. He's at Trout Point. So we're anchored. We're just sitting at one of the next points. And the guy's throwing the artificials around Trout Point, and he finally moves up. So we zoom in there, anchor up. My first cast, I get an 18 3/4 fill.
Wow.
My first real big one, right?
That's a big fish.
Had we been there 2 hours earlier, and if they didn't bite, we would have moved. I never would have caught that fish.
Darn.
So I thought about the way everything worked out.
Sounds like divine providence. Is that what you think? Maybe.
That's it, because here, I'm thinking, okay, I've got it wired. They're on this spot. And you know what? Mother Nature dictates the time of day they bite. I do know, and this is something that I've seen, is in the big fish that we've caught, generally have always been the first cast.
Well, and you mentioned why.
Yeah, and remember we studied them in the aquarium?
Yeah.
And he had one dominant fish.
It's
and
interesting.
Until he was full, the others didn't eat.
That is really interesting.
So that concept, I believe.
Do you think that is the same with calico bass and sand bass, or
I don't
there's
know,
no way to tell, right?
There's probably no way to tell. And then with calicos, I never necessarily seen the biggest fish being the first one on the boat in all those years. It's pretty rare. I've seen some great bites on some big fish, but wasn't necessarily, the first fish on the boat.
Yeah. Steve Bermudez is Johnny on the spot for us. He's out there researching. He says 1948 for the Redondo Rod and Gun Club. They got their start in 48. Yeah. They're also doing a barred perch tournament coming up here pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to getting that date and participating in that. I love awesome. Catching barred perch.
Yeah. Some of those little swim baits that fish has in the Worm Kings.
Yeah.
Oh,
they
gotta be a killer.
I would think.
Even if we drop shotted them and work the water column, or just drag the bottom with them.
Yeah, my kids.
Unbelievable baits.
My kids drop shotted for halibut where I live.
Yeah.
And they had 5 fish. No legals, but I mean they were catching fish.
Fish was just where the Worm Kings.
No, this was before that.
Oh, okay.
But I'll bet they get those Worm Kings.
Yeah, no,
He's got some that look exactly like a grunion.
Oh, unbelievable.
Worm King at the Bart Hall Show.
Yeah, it'll blow you away.
Go see Fish and tell him Danny and Phil
Yeah.
sent you over to bug him, please.
They're so good. Whether it catches fish or not doesn't make any. You're going to have them because they look so beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A couple other guys you want to bug at the show at the Promar booth are Joaquin Espinosa and Steve Oropesa. Go see those guys. Israel De La Cruz says, Phil, did you hear about the new boat on the fleet out of C4 Sport Fishing, the Highliner? It used to be the Pacific Islander. Love the Islander. I fished that a lot with Steve Virtue up there in the Channel Islands. Now it's owned by Jason Zenner. He used to be the Pride owner before he sold the Pride. I did hear about that, Israel, but hey, if you fished with him before and you want to give him an affirmation and say that you love the guy, please do. Just throw it up there right now. I assume you have fished with him maybe, and have you ever fished the Pacific Islander?
No, what boat was that?
That's what I knew it as. Steve Virtue ran it up there in the Channel Islands. I'll tell you, I mean, this might resonate with a few people, but the Desiree thing, the whole, the rescue and all that, I fished with Pablo Pena on the Pacific Islander. Pablo Pena is the guy who saw Mark Paisano and...
Is it the Islander?
No.
So it's not a
Different one. Yeah,
It's not a
different.
dip bar, okay.
He's the guy that called me and said he knew Desiree and then got that all together.
Wow,
So
that's
why I
a
think that was the Pacific guy. Pablo Pena, you'll have to tell me if
Yeah.
I'm nuts. So good stuff. So you do. I think it is game on for the Bluefin now. I mean, the Royal Star's been on it. The Royal Polaris, I heard, was seeing fish.
It goes back to that old saying I was telling you, they are where you find them.
Right.
There's a lot of truth to that.
And how about coverage? How important is coverage?
Coverage is good. I mean, especially when you're working together with a group of boats.
But I mean, if you have 2 boats out there as opposed to 12 boats out there,
2 different spots to check out. But
and you get 12 boats out there, you cover even more, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a communication deal. In the old days, there was a lot of code boats and stuff like that. And you had to watch them, turn the radar on, track guys, figure it out by. We had directional finders. There's different ways that we found back in the old days. But now, everybody's working together and they're working on, hey, cell phones.
I know.
It was different. We had to use code and different things like that.
Hit that like button, please. As Danny is doing another great show here tonight. Israel says, my son Isaac caught his first bluefin tuna with Jason on the Pride, so he's got a great memory. Everybody remembers that kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
I was blown away yesterday, like Doug from, or the guys from Accurate Reels, the last time they saw my kids were like 3 feet tall. And so now, Philip's a pretty big guy. He's like 6'3", and Patrick, so they were like, what? My God. So I got a kick out of that.
That's so cool.
Janix 1, 2, 3, Chi-Chi's. Yes, I know the joke, but this is a family show tonight. Tim P., do you think fuel surcharge will ever go away? Oh, boy, did you just throw a softball to Danny? He might go political now. Danny, what do you think? Go ahead. Let it rip.
It won't be under this administration.
There you go.
That's not a fact. I mean, that is a fact, but I can remember fuel when it was 17 cents, the diesel and stuff, and to see that kind of hike to what we're doing now, it's just.
Is it a self-inflicted wound, or is it
self-inflicted? I mean, we got the greatest resources under our feet and offshore. We could be self-sustaining. Which, how stupid is that to not be self-sustaining? And to have to source from other people and be dependent on other countries?
Yeah, especially some of the regimes that we're buying the oil from are really not
Are you really going to trust them? I mean,
and they're not good to their people.
You'll never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, what is going on? Well, I don't know if we want to devolve into that.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it to fishing.
Yeah.
Fishing's it's a happy deal.
I think Danny's right.
The fuel, that, I'm sorry, but, we didn't help ourselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hey, I'm going to get you up to date on a few dates. If you have any more questions before Danny and I run out of here and go see our families, throw them up there. Danny's been going almost 2 hours now. It has been awesome so far.
Smokes.
So,
Bless you guys.
April the 13th is going to be the Rod and Gun Club in Redondo Beach. Danny will be doing his show live in front of all of you. They also have a great menu. The food there is always great.
Oh, it's always great.
It's fantastic. You get copious amounts of whatever it is you're after. So it'll be great. And then following Danny, we'll go and live stream. If you can't come to the event, we'll live stream Bill Wilkerson, the captain of the Malahini and the Horizon. He's going to be giving a presentation. 2 days later, Danny and I will be at Santa Ana River Lakes, and we'll be talking about trout fishing. Kids can come. There's going to be lunch. It costs $10 to get lunch. You also get a raffle ticket. You can win a Penn Fathom reel, a couple of beautiful custom trout rods, and you get lunch. You don't have to be present. If you buy those raffle tickets, you can buy the raffle tickets and you don't have to be present. You can win any one of those great raffle prizes. And again, it's about the kids and teaching the kids how to fish. So that will be on Saturday, April 15th. I think I finally got these dates right, Danny. I've been screwing everything up. And then I'm pretty sure, and I'm not talking for Danny. Danny says he's going to be there. I trust him, but I'm talking about myself. Pretty sure I'm going to be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Bart Hall Show. Danny and I will be walking around. Sometimes we get separated because somebody grabs him and starts chewing on his ear.
Or vice versa.
Somebody grabs me and starts chewing on my ear.
A lot of chewing going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of chewing, but we love it, don't we, Danny?
Absolutely.
All right, hey, we're not done quite yet, so let's see what I know, right? Steve Bermuda says the Red Rooster 2 was the Pacific Islander, or
the Red Rooster. Yeah, the Islander is the Red Rooster.
oh, there you go. Yeah,
I was at Ditmar Donaldson.
Yeah,
Ditmar had a lot of boats back.
I know.
In the day, the Searcher. I mean, there were a lot of them.
Yep.
If you look at the first ones, were the Freedom, the Liberty, and the
America.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So Ditmar had its play, and then they went into building 65-footers and stuff like that. But that was the original. The planks, and a lot of those are still around. They fish great. Maybe we could have had a better trip than on the Freedom.
I know.
Back in the fall. So they fish great.
We'll be doing that again before you know it.
Yeah. I can't wait to see Pat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Tim P., what do you think about the reduced to limited loads due to COVID and the higher prices by the boat? So the loads were reduced because of COVID, and everybody's kind of stuck with that. Light loads are good. The one thing that about light load, I decked on the Searcher when we'd have 100 people on the boat, people sleeping in the galley.
I can remember those.
It was insane.
I can remember those.
But
it's crazy. Yeah.
And it was brutal.
Yeah.
But the one thing about it, Danny, was we had so many more people participating in this sport.
That's right.
And now when you reduce the prices, when you reduce and raise the prices, you get a smaller group of people participating in this.
I think they're going to have to be cognizant of this. It's very tough to start out young kids at that rate.
Yeah.
It's great to take them on the half-day trips and everything, but when you get offshore, it's almost like, and this is why I want to start these fishing clubs and stuff in school.
Right.
Is to get these kids dialed in, and then even from there transfer to the boat captaining, where they can get the rules of the road for these kids. If they get on the boats and if they're diligent, they could work into it and maybe start a farm club for building crew members.
How cool would that be?
Bringing them down there. We already got their fishing dialed in, the etiquettes, the whole deal, and then, the rules of the road and stuff like that. And, hopefully that down the road they'll go into, running boats and being skippers or utilize them on a tug or something, where they're living. So
good stuff, Danny. Yeah. Israel De La Cruz. Hey, Danny, do you plan on hitting the freshwater soon and visiting Lake Castaic in the future? You plan on doing that?
Oh, Casitas.
I'm sorry.
What's funny? We have, those days of my serious fishing are gone.
Yeah.
What we've been doing is chartering Rich Tauber's pontoons.
Oh.
And it's more about, what are we eating on the pontoon? We bring out all the best.
I think Rich is at the Bart Hall Show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can visit him.
Blast.
Yeah.
For you old guys that want to go out and just laugh it up. And to me, at this point now, that serious fishing is gone.
Yeah.
We go out and just BS with each other and just mess with each other, have a food fest. But you know what? At this stage, this is what it's all about. I did that stuff, leaving at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, beating them up to the lake, and then running off in 30-degree weather at 70 miles an hour. You had to have a face shield, everything, special clothing. Those days are gone.
Right.
I mean, but I recall it. I enjoyed it then, but I was a lot younger, and I was possessed by those fish at that time. So
right,
it was,
exactly.
to be, well, my fishing mentality was like that anyway. I wanted to be the first one off the dock. I mean, I used to catch some heat because it set the precedent for, made a lot of the other boats look like, well, how come we got to wait till 11? Well, I want first crack at the spots that I want, so it's going to take a little more effort, a little more time. And my groups knew that too, and they went with it. It's just like, I don't want to be, when I leave San Diego, I want to be the first one out. I don't want to be in somebody's wake.
Yeah, no,
I want to
exactly.
be the first one. That also made it necessary, and that's why, like George and I, when we had the first color scanning sonars, it gave us an edge. It gives you a little more opportunity when you're scanning out the sides.
Right.
You don't have to run over it, before you meter it and stop and throw baits on it. You can scan. So I mean, there was a lot of things that made that all work.
Yeah.
But it's really a desire to to lead the pack.
All right, Steve Bermuda says the Islander used to be the Red Rooster 2. Yes, Danny confirmed that. Israel says, I believe the Pacific Islander was the Pacific Isle down in Oxnard. Maybe it was. I thought the Pacific Islander was a boat that Steve Virtue ran, but I've been wrong on everything tonight.
Yeah, the Pacific Islander, I'm not. You're going to have to give me the old name of the boat.
Yeah.
The original name and
We'll
stuff.
try to figure that
track
out.
that, yeah.
All right, Tim P., Mr. Friedman. Hey, Tim, call me Philip, please, or Phil. But thank you. I just got here 15 minutes ago, but you are loud and Danny is soft. Turn your mic down or move it away from your mouth. Oh, I apologize sincerely.
That's the first time I was told that I'm
That's better.
soft.
What does he
Wow.
say? Tim, I apologize. That's why they call me the voice. I will try to be less enthusiastic. All right, folks. So
That's funny.
thanks for joining us tonight. And, I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I offended you, Tim.
God.
Hey, Tim, I'll move it away or I'll be quiet. One of the two. Hey, we've been going 2 hours, man. And if we don't see another question up there, we're going to call it a night, Danny. Another
I don't
great
wanna be
show,
putting
man.
you guys to sleep,
No,
Yeah, yeah.
man. I'm keeping Tim up, obviously, with my
man.
big mouth.
Yeah.
Great show, man.
Well, and going back to the thing at Casitas, fishing with your friends is still, right now, that's priority. And for me, it's getting my kids and grandkids into this, and one of the greatest things was taking my granddaughter Gia at the show to the trout pond, and I know that's going to be my fishing partner. Down the road,
I can see that watching the two of you.
Yeah.
All right, you have got Tim. You're gonna have to move away from the TV or turn it down for sure. Dan wants you to yell "hookup," and I am with Dan 100%.
I'm telling you.
Let it rip. Do
I'm
it,
telling you.
Tim.
I
Move
can
away.
wake guys up with the generators going, stopped up. I did this for sure. This is on American Angler. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm down in my stateroom. Brian was still running the boat before I chased him off to let Ray run it because I know how good he is. I don't need him to prove anything to us. Anyway, we're coming in from Guadalupe, and I hear the throttles come back. So naturally, even in my sleep, I just know something's going on. But then I could feel us doing the squiggles. So he snouched. I heard the sonar dome going down because the transducer was right there. So I could hear it going down. He slows down. He's metering, and all of a sudden, we're moving, doing the squiggly deal, and all of a sudden we stop. So by habit, I just get up. I walk up. I go back to the stern. I've got some coffee. I'm the only one up. And I look up, and here's Brian up there, up on the bridge, by the ladder. And all I did was I go like this, and he goes. So I grab a Tatty 9 heavy. I go halfway up, almost like where the coffee machine is in the galley. So I'm up the bow. The windows are all closed, right? I hang a bluefin in the dark. It's like 4 a.m, and I yell hookup. Now all the stateroom doors are shut on the upper level and the bottom level. I mean, those guys came flying out of there. So that tells you
How loud
what
you
my
are.
voice can do, and this is
I'm still not letting you get away with this. Are you going to yell hookup tonight for Dan?
I will do that.
Oh, should I go let Tony know up front?
Yeah. So he doesn't,
Tim,
have an
be
accident.
careful here. If you think my voice is loud, I think you're going to get blown out here. I hope
you
so
guys
at
ready?
least.
You
This should
better
be
you better
good.
tone it down a little bit.
I
but-
can't wait to hear
You
this,
ready?
man. Yes.
All right.
Here we go.
And that's not the boat.
Oh, they heard that up in the restaurant.
Yeah, good. I wonder how many glasses dropped and people choked.
I'm waiting for somebody to come through the door here. That's awesome. How was that, Dan?
I could stop a boat and no problem.
Oh, my God.
With the triple V12s going. And
Are
those
you-
are Detroits, which are louder.
Can you give Vavoom a run for his money?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, but Kohei was awesome. He had a deeper throw. I mean, for him to stop two boats that are, several hundred yards away
Yeah.
from us, he's amazing.
That's-
He's legendary.
That is
And
crazy.
he was just a great guy to have on the boat. I mean, he's a good friend.
Hey, Tim wants to know, what are the must-hit booths at the Bart Hall Show? He's going on Saturday. Tim, I hope I see you there. And come by and say hello to Danny
really,
and I.
we got stopped so much. We didn't.
I know.
We really couldn't make the rounds. I mean, because we got stopped everywhere when you're talking with everybody and stuff.
I think you're honestly kind of high on the Worm King thing with Fish, right? Not because he's a friend, but you really thought that
those baits. I mean, here's one thing: even if they don't catch fish, they're going to catch fishermen. But I could see places for it, including trout.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the Promar booth, but I mean, the Promar booth, because I got two dear friends there. Frank Ursetti over at H&M. I love Frank. I spent some fun times.
We're involved.
Bill
We're partners.
Wilkerson from the Horizon. You can go say,
That was a great, sitting with him in the booth.
Yeah.
Finding out that we grew up.
You grew up together.
real
Didn't
close
know
by.
it.
Yeah. I mean, unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It's
That is
phenomenal,
for sure.
So, you never know what you're going to get at the show, and that's the beauty of it,
Yeah, enjoy, Tim. Just wander around, have a good time, and if you see Danny and I, don't throw us out. let it stay, will you? All right, Israel De La Cruz. Danny, did you fish two baits for fresh or saltwater?
I played around with them, but whenever I played with artificials, it was at a fun time of year. It wasn't for serious. Well, we were chasing those big fish. I contended that those big bass, they don't get to the size by eating plastic and wood. There's not much protein in that. So they make a difference, and even the live baits, I did not see them eating the swim baits. I never hooked any real big ones with water dogs or the mudsuckers, which were at that time were legal, and they were expensive and they were hard to keep. You had to continually. We'd have the 5-gallon jugs that I would take salt water from the boat, from the Mustang, bring it home and change the water on the mudsuckers. On the water dogs, you had to have it refrigerated. So they're high maintenance. Where the crawdads were less, but I would change the water on all 10 bins every night.
It's
So
like
it was
a
lot of
full-time
work.
job.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it is. But I mean, that's like anything, when you have the cured bait, and everybody else is getting stuff that is weaker and everything, it makes a huge difference. The weak stuff, but that time had died off, and you had nothing that when it hit the water, it just scampered down. If there was a fish, it'd let you know. Just like a sardine or anything else, they'll have that panic thump, and it gives you a heads up, and you'd be on point, and then all of a sudden, thump, and then you nail it, But yeah, it's worth it. I mean, there was a time glad I did it then, because I sure as heck aren't going to do it now. It's a lot of work. A lot of work.
Dan Smith says he loved the hookup cry. Thanks for a great evening, he said.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for listening, folks.
It's been a great evening. And
Absolutely.
Joe Surwald says, Danny for president. I agree, man.
Let me tell you, it's just a pleasure for me to be in the crowd of enthusiasts, and to pay it back. I had the blessings of being around a lot of that, and I've learned a lot, and I will continue to learn a lot. I mean, that's the whole thing with all of us, It never stops. It never stops. The minute you think you know it all, you're done. You're cooked, So, there's a constant learning curve. If you're, a true fisherman at heart, and you want to keep progressing and figuring it out, you have to keep that mind working.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Blue Skies wants to know fiberglass. You thought we were getting out of here, didn't you, Danny? You were dead wrong. Fiberglass or composite rods? Which ones do you like, Danny? I kind of like the bend on the fiberglass rod.
Okay, no, you know what? Because I've seen the evolution of the technology over the years, I'm going to take it one step past the composites and fiberglass. I use straight graphite. It's, you might think it's riskier. It's not riskier if you know how to fish. And telling you that the angles that we fish, if you're keeping it from 90 degrees on down, it's not going to break. But it will recoil way faster than a composite and a fiberglass rod. And that recovery, combined with a 2-speed and Spectra, where you have a little stretch, this fish never, the thing is not to let them get their head down on you. When you have monofilament, which stretches, it's very easy for that fish that's planing like this. If you slack off at all and the head gets tilted down just a little bit, one kick of the tail and it's taking drag on you. Okay? So conversely, if you're on this thing and you're just grinding away, you're keeping more pressure by having it down at that lower angle. And I think we gave the relative lifting weights that you're getting at a lower level, having your rod angle down, never more than 90, okay? Now, of course, 90, if the fish is out there, 90 is now like this, right? So, you don't want it ever higher than that at any point because you're losing substantial pressure on that. But definitely when you're up and down, if you keep it down at that angle and you're just picking it up, using the rock of the boat, as you go up, you're holding, as it's coming down, you're picking up the line. You have to be cognizant of all your surroundings, utilizing the swell, the rock of the boat, the drift, everything. That'll help shorten your fight. And you actually utilize that to help kill the fish, So it's, it takes time. You just have to practice it and you have to be on top of it. But yeah, those little things make all the difference.
Beautiful stuff. All right, Tim P wants to know if Shimano is doing reel maintenance at the Bart Hall Show. I think I saw them right across from Worm King. I don't know.
But I wouldn't take my tackle to the show. I would go deal with your individual tackle shops. There's so many great, tackle shops that do servicing, but I wouldn't bring your gear down there. It's just more to haul around and everything,
Go enjoy the show.
Yeah, go enjoy the show, Yeah.
Israel de la Cruz. Danny, any thoughts about joining the CCA board as a board member? You have great knowledge and great love for the sport of fishing.
I wouldn't mind, but I'm not good at politics because
You don't have any filter.
I don't, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And a lot of times they don't want to hear that. You want to negotiate. You got, my doppelganger, Wayne.
We have a video on that. He looks just. I thought you were Wayne tonight. Oh, you're Danny Kadota?
You're watching.
I thought you were Wayne.
But it takes a personality that can handle that much better. For me, I was around Russ Iser, and if I hear them say something that I think is idiotic, I'll tell them, "Oh, that was stupid," And that filter is bad. But I'm it's not that I'm lying. I'm telling you the truth.
Right.
But yeah,
You don't get that in politics very often. The truth.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I was brought up a different way. Yeah. But yeah, no, I would. If it didn't frustrate me, my problem is when you get into the politics, for the most part, it could get very frustrating. I know we need a voice to fight, like the old Russ Eisen, and I'm sure he would tell me, yeah, do it, but because he didn't pull any punches, and as things turned out, he was right with everything that he proposed.
And sometimes, Danny, I'm just thinking out loud here. Sometimes you can do more good for the sport of fishing being on a show like this, where you can speak your mind and tell everybody how you feel.
Absolutely.
And that sometimes will drip down to the politicians.
Sure.
The politicians just have their
censored and say, or if you're compelled by somebody lining your pockets, you'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
That's not me either. Yeah. So
Right, and there's never been a time, and there never will be a time. I've never said to you, don't mention this gear or don't. I just want you to tell the
I'm
truth.
telling you exactly what we do.
Yeah,
what we
because-
believed in and what we saw.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So maybe Israel, maybe Danny's home is right here doing what he's doing. And Dan Smith says, "Here we go, Danny's Danny's ready to rock and roll." I love it too.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you tell it like it is.
Well, you know what? That's the only way to tell it. You know, if you tell the truth, you never have to worry about. And here's a funny deal. There are people that I was associated with, and we fished around, and over time I saw certain things, and by being disassociated with them, it tells you a little bit about my thoughts on a lot of those people. Whether the credibility factor went, whether they lied, this, that. That I don't have to go beyond that, but it's just telling you.
This is funny. I'm telling you right now. Israel De La Cruz. This is hilarious stuff, man.
Oh, God.
He's at Day at the Docks. He saw Wayne, and he said, I'm finally going to introduce myself to Danny Kadota. But being a shy guy, Israel says he's a little shy. He says he didn't do it. Now he's glad he didn't. So I thought you guys were fooling around with that whole doppelganger thing, but Israel thought that Wayne was you.
He's a nice guy, and he deals with the politics. I don't. That's why I'm a little unfiltered.
Israel, that's funny.
I'll keep the language out of it, but other than that, content, I'm unfiltered. I'm not going to pull any punches on things that I think were stupid by Fish and Game or anybody else. I'll tell you that, my actual thing. Wayne is much more tactful.
Hey, thanks for sharing that, though. That is funny because we just did a video on people confusing you two.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's good stuff.
Love it.
All right, I think we're good. Danny, you want to say anything to anybody out there?
Phil and I appreciate everything, guys, and you save up your questions, and we'll catch you next time. And more than happy to answer anything.
We'll see you at the Bart Hall Show
See you
tomorrow.
at the show, yeah.
Yeah, and then one more time, April 13th, Danny will be doing a live show from the Redondo Beach Rod and Gun Club. 2 days later, we'll be at Santa Ana River Lakes. You can get information on that by going to the Freedman Adventures Facebook page. Just go there, check it out, or you can check it out on Instagram. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok. All right, Albert Ponce says, great show. As always, Blue Skies loves it. Dan Smith says hello to Albert. And we say goodnight one more time. Danny, thanks. Great show.
See ya.